Okay, give me a second. Give me a second. I've accidentally just changed modes. There we go. Okay, I'm doing this one a little bit awkwardly. So I'm just gonna, before I do anything, just tweet it out. God, for some reason, I don't know why YouTube never bloody lets us change the fucking thumbnail on this, even when I ask it to. I literally say to it, let's change the fucking thumbnail, and it won't until afterwards. I honestly don't know why. Excuse me. Also, if you're watching this back on after it's gone out, give it a minute or so for it to get back in. Let's see, can I edit it? Message blah, 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 blah. No. Why won't you let me edit the thumbnail? Don't know why. Oh well, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes and that to join, and then we'll start properly. But yeah, it's got like by the time recording streaming this, it's got one viewer in the live section. I should check the stream actually on YouTube, just to make sure it's working. So no, it is. Okay, so I'll give it another minute or so, and we'll start discussing season 13 and that's because basically in terms of the episodes themselves, I mean there's nothing positive to see and that about like, not in terms of the stories themselves, but in terms of the version that is on the Blu-rays here. Like, there's absolutely nothing positive whatsoever to say about them. And that, I mean, if you've seen my YouTube shorts on them, I literally said it when the initial trailer came out. I literally said, look, they've given Tom Baker turkey teeth. And I had so many people say to me, oh, it's just the trailer, and that it's just the trailer for the box set, and that's unfinished. No, it was already finished. Those trailers, they go up when the box set is finished, like in terms of everything on it. And I think people don't seem to realise that these box sets are worked on, in some cases, years in advance. For example, the special features for season 20 were being filmed in 2019. And yet that box set didn't come out until 2023. And I think they deliberately waited until then so they could call the version of the 5 Doctors on there the 40th anniversary edition. But for example, we know they've been working on season 11 and that, forever and a day. Yeah, that still hasn't seen the light of day. They have been filming special features for season 21, because Janet Fielding and Peter Davison have been spotted on location for Resurrection of the Daleks, which also is a location in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So, yeah, if you've seen that film, that was the first thing I saw when I saw the trailer for that film, actually. It was just like, ooh, it's the location for Resurrection of the Daleks. Yay. Yeah. But they film them well in advance. In terms of, the thing is, you can't even call it restoration, though. You cannot call these restoration, basically. I might show a little bit later, but I'm a little bit worried on how much I can show, because obviously I can't show too much, because otherwise the BBC is very, very keen to take down videos and that on this. They're very, very keen to shut it down. And, because their copyright system is broken. But basically, this image on screen basically kind of says it all. I mean, this is from Android Invasion. And there's a video by Pip on YouTube who does a really good comparison. If you haven't seen it, they do a really good comparison with the Android Invasion, where they show that, with, for example, Tom Baker's teeth. I was right about his teeth and the fact that they've made his teeth all straight, they've filled in all the gaps in his teeth, and also they've made them like, bright white like turkey teeth. So, yeah, because I know Tom Baker's teeth very well. I've seen them that many times, him doing that grin, and the second anything is off about it, there's a Unix soldier that's a stuntman in the story where his fingernail has been removed because, AI doesn't know what to do with it. And it is AI. I've had so many people tell me that, oh no, they're not using AI in the season 13 box set and some of the previous, more recent ones, which, yes, they have. Go and listen. If you don't believe me, go and listen to the behind the scenes podcast about these box sets, and basically they mention how they used artificial intelligence. And if you don't know, that is what AI stands for. They used an artificial intelligence program, aka AI, to basically upscale these, which is not how they previously did them. Because there is a difference between upscaling something and an AI upscale. Big difference between them, and I'll explain it again and that for people, who don't know. Basically, an upscale is where you're taking, basically, an image or video, whatever, and basically you're just trying to scale it up to a higher resolution. You might try and sharpen the image a little bit here and there, but basically you're just trying to scale it up to, make it fit a higher resolution. AI upscaling is completely different. What AI does is essentially it is replacing the image and that with something else. It's trying to basically what AI is doing is it's taking the original image and it's then completely redoing it from scratch, essentially. And it's basically trying to artificially guess, what it would look like if it was in HD. And what it does is it will smooth everything out, because it's a lot easier when you smooth everything out rather than, have all the little detail in there. That's why a lot of the skin looks really, smooth and plasticky, and that, again, like an Auton. It's all smoothed out and everything, and also sometimes they'll also blur the background a little bit more, or they'll try and over-sharpen it, and basically, AI is basically just redoing the whole image, so you're not looking at the original thing anymore. but also calling it restoration, the proper restoration that was done on the previous sets. I think, I don't know if it was season 25 or season 15 when they first started doing it. I thought it was season 25. Some people have said it was season 15. Could be either or a mixture. But basically, the older type of the restoration, that took work and a lot of effort, and was obviously more difficult and more expensive to do. But you know what? You could see the difference. You could appreciate it more. Yeah, it wasn't going to be. Most of them weren't a night and day comparison to the DVD. But you know what? It still looked better, and you could still at least, then call it, okay, this is the definitive version. With these ones, all they do is just chuck it into a program, an AI program, and just tell it to basically upscale the image to 1080p. They're done. That's what it is. And you can actually get, I don't have the same piece of software, but you can get pieces of software that do that. AI software, because basically there's a lot of AI software now that is basically marketed towards television companies to basically upscale their older content to HD. And that's essentially what they're using. And you can get it. There is a home version available of a lot of these softwares. Again, I can't remember the exact one they're using. I can't remember if they actually mentioned the exact piece of software and that they were using, but they all essentially do the same thing. They basically, they essentially throw the piece of footage into an AI program and then ask it to upscale it. Yeah, that's restoration there. That's a hard job. And the thing is, it's all done by essentially one guy. And this one guy is kind of a bit infamous in these circles, because he is, well, I don't know if he did it for this box. I don't know if he was involved in doing it for this box set, but for season 25, he definitely did the AI upscalings for them. But he's the guy who did the awful edit of the Daleks in colour. And he also did the awful edits for the extended version of Remembrance of the Daleks. Because he did the special editions of those on the season 25 box set, which, oh boy, I did a whole separate live stream showing that, but they were bad. And they were really bad, which is why when that box set did come out, I actually did, with that footage, I actually re-edited that together. Now that one, the season 25 one, I'll have to re-watch it, but that's the only one I kind of gave a pass to with the AI, because it wasn't too aggressive on that one. But with each box set, the AI has just gotten more and more aggressive, basically. Like, they're trying to push it way too far. And it's gotten to that point now where, to be honest, I'd rather them just take the transfers that they've got, because they're using the old DVD transfers. Season 13, from what I'm aware of, because no one's mentioned it, it uses all of the old DVD transfers, so that's another way they've saved money. They're not done new transfers. Because basically on all of the previous box sets, for the most part, they would basically do a new transfer for, a couple of the stories and that. Or in some cases, like season 19, I think every story had a new transfer because it had new film footage. But recently they haven't been doing that anymore. And that in terms of new transfers. So all of them are the old DVD transfers. Now for stuff like, excuse me, Seeds of Doom and Terror the Zygons, those transfers, were done just over a decade ago. And that's Terror the Zygons obviously being one of the last DVD releases in the original range. And that was Terror the Zygons 2013 or 2014? Because that one did get delayed, I remember. That might have been 2014, Terror the Zygons, actually. And I think Seeds of Doom was 2012? Maybe 2011? But, for example, Brain of Morbius, and especially also Mind of Evil, Mind of Evils was 2007. Brain of Morbius was 2008. And you might be thinking, oh, that's only, up to like a 5-year gap between them. But the technology in scanning things, really big difference in that time frame, because basically during that time frame we were going from standard definition and that to high definition, and basically when we did go into high definition, all the equipment was upgraded. So the transfers done there, even though it was still standard definition from the videotape, they were better transfers because it was, basically new equipment being used. So it would have been nice if we had new transfers. But anyway, as I was saying, even if they did take those DVD transfers and put them on a Blu-ray disc, they would still look better. They would still look better because Blu-ray basically has a better encoding and a better higher bitrate than DVD. Will it look night and day difference better than a DVD if they were to do it that way? No. But it wouldn't look, any worse off either. It would still look better. Probably you'd have to A/B compare it, but it would still look a bit better because, again, it would basically be the best quality possible. And the advantage of doing it that way as well is that basically you can maximise everything. But that's not what they're doing with this AI. And the thing is, will they change it with future box sets? I doubt the next one will be, because the next one will have been being worked on, at the same time as this one. I doubt anything would change about them. I don't know. But I think this is the first time I've seen a massive kick up on them. Like with the previous box sets, there were people like me talking about, but with season 13, particularly I think because of how beloved it is, but also how much they've, doubled down on the AI on this one. I don't know, maybe it may make them think twice, to be honest. Basically, there's other things you can do. You can email BBC DVD Inquiry, I think it's called, the email address. And a lot of people like myself are emailing them to complain and that about the AI. And I suggest if you do that, be as nice as possible about it. My email basically ask them, please stop using AI on the box sets as it's ruining them. I can't remember my exact words, but yeah, but get them, like tweet at the BBC, at the Doctor Who Twitter page and that, and do it on Facebook and everything. Just, if you're not happy about this, let them know loud and clear about this. Though again, whether they'll do anything about this, I don't know. My feeling is they probably won't and just double down because, well, I mean, look at what the BBC did during, when Doctor Who was on TV and everyone was telling them, look, this is shit, there are problems here, and they just kind of ignored it. The only way that they may do something about this is basically because, one, actual fans do work on these collection sets, so maybe they might actually listen. But the other reason that they might do something about it is basically because, obviously, unlike the TV license, which you have to pay, these box sets, obviously, are made to make money. And obviously, if less people are going to buy them because of the AI, maybe not. Maybe that'll be the thing that actually, stops people and pushes people over. I have seen several people comment on my video saying that they're not going to buy the season 13 box set. And I can't blame them. I can't blame them for that. Which is a shame. It is a shame because everything else about it I like. The special features, and that's there's a really good new documentary about Ian Marter's life, which is a really good documentary. The behind the sofas, again, I love the behind the sofas. and that on here. Janet Fielding is always fantastic to watch, and that when she comments about anything. But it's enjoyable. The In Conversation with... I haven't watched the one with Tom Baker for this season, but I have watched the one with Graham Harper, and the Graham Harper one, is really interesting, and that to listen to Graham Harper, and that... sorry, give me a second, I'm just going to have a drink of water. But the Graham Harper one, really good. The only thing I'd say about the Graham Harper In Conversation is I would have liked him to have talked more about when he returned to Doctor Who. And that he does talk about it, but I wish he went into as much detail as he did, for his stuff up to that. And also, something he doesn't talk about at all, which I would have personally liked him to have talked about, is obviously he also directed a few Sarah Jane Adventure stories. I think he directed 3 or 4. I can't remember how many. He directed Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane. He also directed the Series 2 finale, and I think he directed Day of the Clown, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. He definitely did 3. I don't know if he did 4 or not. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that one. It was the one with the trickster from Series 2. The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith. That's it. So he did Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane Smith, The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith, and the Series 2 finale of the Sarah Jane Adventures, which the title of it escapes me at the moment. But other than that, yeah. Other than that, with this box set, and that, I can't really think of much new. Oh, there is something missing, though. And it was the same thing that was missing on the Season 17 box set, in that, basically, on Pyramids of Mars, is missing a special feature. Yeah, so, if you didn't know, Pyramids of Mars, on the DVD, had a little sketch on it involving Sutek, where basically the sketch is basically, them pretending, them interviewing Sutek as if he was, an actual person playing a version of himself on TV. And they did the same thing for City of Death on Season 17, which were on the original DVD releases, and they were made for the DVD releases. That is not on here for some reason, and I don't know why. I really don't know why, because all of the other special features and that were on there. But yeah, it's missing that for Pyramids of Mars, and obviously it was the one made for City of Death was also missing on the Season 17 box set. I don't know if it's a rights issue, but I doubt it, since it was made for the BBC and made for the original DVD releases. So I really don't know how it could be a rights issue. If anyone knows the actual reason, and when I say actual reason, I mean actual reason, not speculation, and that, because the only thing I can think of is one of two things: either they've forgotten it was missed out accidentally, which is very possible, or they don't have the rights for whatever reason, and that, because sometimes it can be a complicated thing with them. But yeah, that's missed out. I do have a little update on the situation. If you have the season, speaking of Season 20, I have an update on the situation. If you have the original release of the collection Season 20, you might be aware that there are replacement discs supposedly, available, because there was some video or audio issues on its original release. Personally, I couldn't see them myself. I may have been lucky or not, I don't know, but I'll take the replacement discs anyway, and that, because who knows, maybe it is there and I just missed it watching it. But if you email the BBC DVD support and basically send them a screenshot of basically your proof of purchase and that, which for me was basically the confirmation email, which I had to go and dig out. I did get an email back from them the other week, because I did email them again last week. I emailed them last week to ask if there was an update on the situation. And what they're doing is basically they're waiting to compile a full list of basically, you know, all the people who have emailed in requesting the replacement discs for their season 20 box sets. And once they've compiled that list, they're going to send out all the replacement discs at once. So that's what they're going to do with that. If you do have the standard edition of season 20, then this does not affect you, because you already have the replacement discs, because basically whatever issue in that the season 20 Blu-ray had, they fixed it by the time the standard edition came out. So it only affects people who have the collector's edition. So yeah, which is also a bit annoying with the collector's editions, because with the collector's editions, you're essentially a bit more of a guinea pig in that you're essentially, if this is going to be the worst version of it, which, you know, is a bit disappointing, because, you know, these stories and that, a lot of them 50, 60 plus years old, some of them. You got all the time in the world and that to polish them up. Just saying. And especially, you know, with porting over special features, come on. One other thing about the collection season 13, and I've never had this happen on another box set, and it's not to do with the box set itself, it's to do with the booklet. There's a misprint in the booklet, or should I say lack of print in the booklet, for example, in Brain of Morbius. For some reason, Brain of Morbius does not mention in the booklets the fact that it has PDF material, which is really bizarre. If you don't know, on the Blu-ray sets, each story generally will have PDF material, whether it's the Radio Times listings, original camera scripts, or whatever. But basically, pretty much every story, or nearly every story, will have some sort of PDF material, where if you insert the disc into your PC, you'll be able to then, you know, look at the PDF material and copy it to your PC. But for some reason, on every other disc and in every other booklet for every box set, it tells you what discs have PDF material. Apart from Brain of Morbius, where they've missed that off. So yeah, the only thing I can think of, it was a typo, and it makes me wonder, have they rushed this thing out a bit? And maybe why the AI is so bad as well on this as well, because, you know, they're just trying to rush these last few out as quick as they can, because they're coming to the end of the range in terms of ones they can do. They are coming to the end of the range of ones they can do, because they're deliberately holding off on 60s ones, and they deliberately mention they're deliberately holding off on them for two reasons. Number one, we could have some missing episodes returned, and that at some point. We do know of one that was meant to be returned. Unfortunately, the owner died on, I think it was literally the day they were meant, Film is Fabulous was meant to go and pick up their collection. The owner of them died, unfortunately, which means it's kind of stuck in a bit of a legal battle, because they have to essentially, you know, prove to courts that, yes, you know, this person had agreed to basically, you know, I don't know if they were giving their collection to them or just loaning it to them, but basically, you know, try and get the rights to basically get that collection of their film prints, which included at least one missing episode of Doctor Who. Didn't mention which one, and I think that's deliberate. I think that's deliberate in that they probably want to keep that as vague as possible so that no one tries to interfere with that and, steal it. And when I say someone, I'm of course talking about Ian Levine. I am utterly convinced Ian Levine either knows or was the person involved in having episode 3 of The Web of Fear stolen. And yes, it was stolen. It didn't just go missing. Because, why would that one episode go missing? These episodes were basically, taped together and then put in a box. So why would that one in the middle go missing? It didn't go missing, it was stolen. And that's basically... But, if Ian Levine wasn't the one who was involved in doing it, he almost certainly will know the person involved. But anyway, the other reason these episodes, the black and white era box sets are being held off is also because animations. We haven't really heard anything else in terms of animations yet. But, we never know, there could be more. Plus also colorizations. Again, pardon me, we haven't heard anything else about any other episode colorizations. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad, because the War Games and also the Daleks in colour, I just don't enjoy them. And that. I will say the editing itself isn't as bad in the War Games as it was in the Daleks. But it does have the problem with a lot of the plot doesn't make sense anymore with that one. I've mentioned this before. Because you've basically cut out more than half the story. But the thing is, as a Doctor Who fan, you're mentally filling in the gaps anyway because you're so familiar with the story. I think that's why a lot of Doctor Who fans can enjoy them, but don't realise there's actually a load of plot holes in this now, and a lot of things that don't make sense because, they're filling in things in their head that they already know. Because, again, they'll have seen the story countless times. I would have been interested to see what they would have done with Tomb of the Cybermen. Or particularly with a 4-parter. What would they have done with a 4-part story? I think with a 4-part story, if you edit that one down, and that can work a little bit better. Or why not take Actually, I was about to say take an omnibus version. There aren't any official omnibus versions, I don't think, for any black and white story. At least official. From what I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah. But it's a shame. The music also... Because Russell T Davies was in charge of these, but obviously Russell T Davies has now left. But Russell T Davies was ultimately in charge of those, and he wanted, them to feel like a new series story. But the problem is you can't make a classic series story feel like a new series story. You just can't. Because it wasn't written like that. It wasn't filmed or presented like that. And it just doesn't work. The two don't gel together. The two don't really gel together. You can't... Plus, it's less likely to make someone want, a younger fan want to watch classic Doctor Who. Because watching those is not like watching classic Doctor Who. It's like watching a Frankenstein version of it. That's all kind of stitched and patched together. And I think it kind of underestimates kids, to be honest, because, when I was a kid, and I watched classic Doctor Who, and I loved it. I I absolutely loved it, and very quickly preferred it to the new series. And this was, how old would I have been? I think I must have been 7 when I started watching classic Doctor Who, because it was in 2006, so I would have been 7 at the time. And as I've mentioned before, the thing I started with was the Peter Cushing films, which I think is a good starting place, actually, to be honest. Like, if you were to show kids classic Doctor Who, but want it to be, a bit more feel similar to, in terms of pacing, get them to watch the Peter Cushing films, because they're a lot, they're essentially that's a good way of showing the difference, because those were originally 6-parters, but they were condensed books. They weren't just the original stories patchworked, together to try and fit a new mould. They were redone from the ground up, taking elements from the original, but redoing them. But Doctor Who is obviously not in a very good place right now, in terms of, on television. In terms of the Blu-ray sets and that, I don't know what the sales are like, to be honest, and that. Generally, you can judge how well a season box set has done on how quickly it sells out, essentially. Because if the collection version of it sells out, within like 2, maybe 3 months, it did decently. If it sells out in 1 to 2 months, it did really well. But if it's still sitting there months and months after, and that, did it do that well? Like, sometimes, occasionally, I'll see season 24, actually, in HMV. That one, which is really, like, the thing is, sometimes when I see it, I have to double take and like, ooh, why is that still there? In terms of like the old collection version, collector's version, and yeah, so it was a bit weird. So kind of like, but obviously the Doctor Who, I haven't checked for last year, and that, but in 2023. For 2023, Doctor Who, as ever, was in the top 10 for best-selling DVDs and Blu-rays in the UK for 2023. And it's managed to basically stay in that for over a decade. And that, if you didn't know, the Doctor Who DVDs and Blu-rays, they do the new series and the classic series separately, but the classic series always makes it into the top 10. The new series, until recent years, always did as well. I think it did in 2023, mainly because of the 60th anniversary and pre-orders and that. I think it missed out during the Jodie Whittaker era. I think it still got in the top 20 maybe, but it did slip down. But the classic series has always kind of remained there. And that, but I don't know. With the way things are going, this is going to change people's minds. And God, like, with how bad, for example, Ian Levine's AI bloody reconstructions are, and that, I mean, they're good to look at for a laugh, and that. If you didn't know, Ian Levine gets basically charges people, I think it's £100 each, or it might be 200, I can't remember. So basically have an AI reconstruction of a Doctor Who story. Basically, he basically gets someone to basically put the telesnaps into AI to reconstruct the episodes, and obviously hilarious results. But just looking at them, could you imagine, them doing that officially? Because they might, you never know. You never know, and that is terrifying to think of. That is terrifying to think of, that. So, I mean, hopefully that'll never be the case. I'm hoping. But, you never know. I think the problem is that, as well, the BBC and a lot of these other companies, you know, they're run by basically old people who don't really understand the technology. They don't really understand it. And they basically, you know, a person will basically go in with a pitch saying, oh, I can make, you know, your old standard definition stuff HD with AI. And they'll go, oh, great, yeah, go do that, you know, because they only have to pay one person to do it. And all they do is basically put it into an AI program, and there you go. And the AI programs themselves, generally, the professional ones at least, are not free. And the reason is, obviously, AI, you know, takes up a lot of resources. Not from the user's end, but from whatever server the AI is using. Obviously, that takes up a lot of performance and bandwidth on the other end. And so that's why, you know, AI programs and that can cost so much money. But it is obviously still significantly cheaper than doing proper restoration, because you can just, you know, pay the AI program once to basically throw all these programs in there, do that, bing bang boom, done, type of thing. Whereas proper restoration, you have to pay, you know, generally several people, and that, depending on whether it's a commission one or an hourly rate one, regardless, it's going to cost more money and take more time. And that's essentially the way this has been going in that with these box sets. And it's just been getting worse and worse. And it feels like it just doesn't have the extra care put in there either. I mean, even, you know what, I'll give season 25 credit. That one did have AI, and that there were the previous ones. Those ones did have AI in it, but at least it felt like they went through with it and looked at it first and kind of went, okay, tweak it a bit here, tweak it a bit there. And they were also doing new transfers and this is even worse, because you can kind of tell that they've just taken the old DVD transfers and just chucked it in AI, into an AI program, and just called it a day. Like, this doesn't feel like they have the love and attention and that the previous sets had. They just don't. And you can tell just by looking at it that they just don't have the love and attention. And I'll take a break from talking about that for a second to go through the comments and that and this. So yeah, if you want to say anything or ask me literally anything, feel free to say anything or ask me. Ooh, there's the program. So M Woods says, even opening credits look different. They don't look natural. And that, yeah, that was something I noticed as well. And that's how you can tell that they've just dumped it into an AI program. Because even the text as well on the credits, they haven't done it how they normally do. Because if you didn't know, for Tom Baker, for season 12 all the way up until season 17, that title sequence had a new HD scan because it was on film. So they did a new HD scan of Tom Baker's title sequence for season 12. Yeah, they did it way back for season 12, and they've reused that HD. Basically what they do is they reuse that title sequence, the HD scan of that title sequence, for basically every single story, unless it's a one where the colour tinting was slightly different or here and there. Like Arcing Space, the colours were slightly different for some reason. But essentially what they'll do is they'll reuse that blank HD scan of that title sequence and then just re-add the text into there. And they'll also do it for the credits as well. And there was an instance where and they did it for, I think, with John Pertwee's title sequence as well, his original title sequence, I think. They did do a new scan of it, but I can't remember if they still had the original film print or not. But anyway, they did do a new scan of it regardless. If you look at Terror of the Autons, you can see when they added the new text in there, and I did mention this in my live stream about it, they actually slightly got the text out of line, and you can see the borderline for where the text was meant to be placed on that one. So yeah, they kind of did a boo-boo on that one, where you can actually see there's a bit of an outer line around it, where I think someone accidentally pressed the down arrow key on their keyboard, and the text went slightly down, and you can see where the border is, where it was meant to go. But with the season 13 box set, with that, since they're just doing the old transfers and chucking them into an AI program, it doesn't look like the new HD title sequence. It just looks like the old transfer from the original DVD, which would have had the title sequence on there as part of it. And because the text looks a little bit weird, it looks a bit softer as well, like round the edges. And it doesn't look like they've replaced the text on there, because generally what they do with these is they replace the original. Again, they'll use an HD scan of the title sequence and then just recreate the text for it in the same font and everything, so that, you know, it can be in true HD, which for me, perfectly fine. They're using the original title sequence and then they're just recreating the text. It looks exactly the same. That's fine. But with this, it just looks a little bit odd that the fact that it's clearly gone through an AI program, and that, so some of the text actually looks a little bit softer, and that in places, because it's went through an AI. It's from standard definition from an AI program, so it doesn't look like they've redone the text on this one. I could be wrong, but yeah, because normally you can tell when they've redone the text on a story for the titles or credits, because the text will be very, very sharp. This is, really particular when you get, for example, black and white stories, and then you see the title of the story and written by, and the text is really sharp, and that in HD on a standard definition, footage, essentially, which you can, it does stand out a bit. And that, which I don't really mind, because since it's text and it's in the same font, for me that's fine, because it's the same font and it looks exactly the same in terms of just text. Anything else I'd be like, no, but just text, fine. Plus it makes it easier to read as well, so there's that as a plus. But yeah, I did notice that, and it is a bit weird. But again, it just kind of screams laziness with these box sets more than anything else. It just utterly screams laziness that they just, chucked in an AI program, called it a day. Bagwellful says, were these not shot on film? No. They were not shot on film. This is a big misunderstanding. So, Doctor Who... Classic Doctor Who was shot primarily on videotape, which, if you don't know, that is 525 lines for colour Doctor Who, and I think 480 lines for black and white Doctor Who. And the reason colour Doctor Who has more interlaced lines, basically, is because colour information requires more lines, essentially. But you can think of it as standard definition, essentially, because what videotape does is essentially it's just capturing a television signal of the time. That's what videotape does. So videotape will never look any better than how it was originally shot, because all it's doing is it's capturing the basically information that a TV would receive and that at the time which beat standard definition. Now, in terms of location, generally throughout the 60s and 70s and early 80s, when Doctor Who went on location, they would shoot on film, and the reason is because the cameras that they would use in the studio that would record and like to videotape were too big and heavy to take on location. However, in the mid-70s, they had developed these new lightweight video cameras, basically, that recorded video. So, for example, the Sontaran experiment, I think, was the first Doctor Who story that was filmed on location but onto videotape. And Seeds of Doom from this season was also recorded to videotape. So that's why it looks the way it does. Now, stuff like Android Invasion and Bits of Terror, the Zygons and that, the location footage for that was filmed on film and that. So, but unfortunately, the original film prints and that, the original film for those sequences no longer exist. So, unfortunately, all they have is the videotape master, which is better than not having the videotape master, because otherwise the quality would be even less. For example, 60s stories, a lot of them are basically film copies of the videotape, which means it's another generation behind the original master, which makes, them look slightly worse than if it was a direct videotape master. So, although it is standard definition, it is the closest to the original thing that we will ever see, because it is essentially that. So, the videotape masters for all the episodes from season 13, I believe, do exist now. So, that's something. That is something. I think Terror of the Zygons was missing for a while, but I think they do have it. But, yeah. In terms of the videotape masters, they do have them. But they don't have any of none of the film elements from season 13 survive. So, unfortunately, it is all stuck in standard definition and that for this. And from season 23 onwards, all of Doctor Who was shot on videotape. Basically, all of Doctor Who was shot on videotape. 1, to save money, and 2, so that it won't look as jarring between the two. So location footage would match up better with studio footage. The only exception to this during those last few seasons were any model shots. Model shots was basically always shot on film throughout, essentially, but they were the one exception by the end of it. And that actually points out something else. These new AI versions and that of the stories, they've got rid of all the film grain as well. It's scrubbed away any film grain, which is also, if you don't know, when you're getting rid of film grain, you're also getting rid of part of the image. You're getting rid of that, because film grain is just a natural part of the process, because film is basically made of a bunch of chemicals, and that is a chemical reaction happening. That's why you get grain on film, and because that makes up the image, and basically film grain is on there as part of the image. Now, there is a bit of an argument to be made about film grain. Some people say you should leave all of the film grain, some people say you should take it off. I'm one of those people who kind of feels like it should be somewhere in the middle, because some film grain can be really bad. For example, when film is deteriorating as well, the film grain can get worse. So digital noise reduction, which is different from chucking it in AI, digital noise reduction, basically getting rid of a little bit of that film grain, and that I'm fine with. Just don't go too extreme. If you want a good example of how digitally removing film grain ruins a film, take a look at the Cinderella Blu-ray. There's a load of people who have done comparisons on that, where, if you don't know, when Cinderella was released on Blu-ray, Disney absolutely went to town on basically DNR in it. So they got rid of all of the film grain on Cinderella, and basically it didn't look right. It looks more like a modern day animation, and it lost a lot of the subtler details and that, and also the shading and everything, which they later did fix for its 4K Blu-ray release and that. So, you know, if you want an idea on how basically digital noise reduction can affect film and the film grain, I think that's one of the best examples on, you know, how it's done wrong and why you shouldn't just remove all of the film grain, because again, it'll make it look really odd. But yeah, I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but anyway, where was I in these comments? But in terms of also, as I said, even though if something is done on videotape, a new since it is still analog, doing a new transfer of it on newer, better equipment can still make it look better. Because it's analog. I'll give you an example, and that's for it. Actually, here's a good example. So, if you have Power of the Daleks Special Edition, you'll find the cassette version as a special feature on there. And it sounds absolutely dreadful. And it's because that transfer was done on a cheap and nasty modern day cassette player, basically. It sounds really horrible and metallic. Whereas I did my own transfer, and that in fact I've done several transfers, and the ones I've used basically 90s cassette decks and that for those, which sound infinitely better, and that they don't have that harsh metallic edge and that. But I think that's a good comparison to that. And if you go on my video, it's still available to download. It is still available to download from there. And if you are interested in those Doctor Who cassettes, download them, because next year I will probably cancel my subscription to OneDrive. Yeah, because I'm kind of sick of paying it since I don't really use it that much, to be honest. And that I might set up my own NAS one day. And that, I don't know, that's a story for another day. But yeah, if you're interested in a lot of the Doctor Who cassettes, some of which have still not been released anywhere else, you know, still free to download from there as MP3s and that, which I've done transfers of and restored it and basically got rid as much as I can. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Anyway, back to the comics. Bagwolf4 says, genuinely, if I were a kid watching classic Doctor Who in this staunted style, I'd hate it and feel like I'm missing out, even if it's not that important to the story. Yeah. The weird thing is, I've had so many people as well tell me they can't see a difference. In the video I showed comparing the two, they said, oh, I can't see a difference. And I called those people blind. And they didn't like that very much, but I don't give a shit. Like, you genuinely must be blind. And that, when I literally zoom in and show the differences and tell you what they are so you know what to look at, if you genuinely cannot see a difference between the two, you honestly need your eyes tested, you need glasses. I'm not joking. Because, like, seriously, how the hell can you not tell the difference? Yeah. Like, I'd understand if, basically, you were looking, you know, scrolling through Twitter or whatever and just seeing the screenshots there and seeing them quite small and that. I could understand that where you're just scrolling through, but when you're watching a video of it, and I show you, and I zoom in to show you, and you still cannot see it, like, what is wrong? What is wrong? Anyway, continuing the comics. Using AI on the deceased, I don't know, but sounds like they're okay for... sounds a bit not okay for telesnaps. Well, to be honest, don't use AI. Like, here's my stance on AI. It should not be used for media. In terms of any restoration to media and that, or anything like that. It shouldn't be used for that. I'm not going to say that AI doesn't, should never be used and that it should all be gone. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is AI should have its place, and it doesn't need to be in fucking everything. It really doesn't need to be shoved into everything. I am sick to death of nearly every single advert these days for things mentioning AI. I mean, for God's sake, I'll give you an example. Every single advert for any technology product now, any technology product, whether it's a phone, a TV, or whatever, always has to mention, powered by AI and that in there, which, don't want that. I don't want that. For example, YouTube is desperate, and this is really annoying, desperate for me to start turning on AI auto responses for comments. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. If I'm responding to a comment, I'm doing it myself. I'm writing it myself. The reason YouTube wants, probably me to use it is because it looks like that, there's more, constant engagement and that with people and that. And it's probably to boost things up. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a small tiny channel like me to do that anyway, because I can generally respond, to every comment anyway. I understand if someone has, millions and millions of comments on that on a daily basis, I could understand why that would be something they would consider. I still wouldn't use it, even if I had, hundreds of thousands of comments a day. I would still not use AI to respond to comments. I'd either, unfortunately not respond to them, and I try to get as many as I can, because again, the thing with this channel is this is me. This is my opinion, my words. I don't want anyone else or any learning algorithm machine and that to put words into my mouth. Everything I say and do on this channel is me. It's my opinion, and that when I respond to people in the comments, that is me responding, and that I don't want an AI to take over, and that, because then it loses the personal touch as well. It loses the personal touch, and it's just not me. So yeah, those are my opinions on that. I mean, but I'm not saying AI can't be useful at all, and that's for some things. For example, I use my Echo Dot on a daily basis, and that I use that on a daily basis, and it's just for simple things. I ask it to remind me to check on the oven in 15 minutes, or I ask it to set me an alarm on that. That is AI. That is an AI assistant, which, has been around for a decade now, I think. And that thing is legitimately useful, but, asking an AI program to do there's a difference between asking an AI program to do a simple task like, remind me to check on the oven in 15 minutes, and then asking it to bloody upscale, footage and that. Two completely different things. And I wouldn't want AI to do that anyway. Because again, it loses that human touch as well. It just, you're always aware that what you're watching isn't real. And yeah, after watching season 13, I just can't rewatch it. I will say the AI upscales for Pyramids of Mars and Mind of Evil and Brain of Morbius. Those 3 stories are watchable. I can still tell that there's AI elements to it. I can still tell when it is there. But it's not as drastic as the others. Like Terror of the Zygons, the Android Invasion, and also Seeds of Doom. I can tell when the AI's there. I can instantly tell. I can tell with the others as well, but it's not distracting enough to spoil my enjoyment of the story. With those 3 stories, though, in season 13, I just can't. It spoiled my enjoyment of the story because the whole time, and that you can't just sit there and watch it because the whole time, your brain is going. Your brain is subconsciously going, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look like a human, and that because our human brains are very good at determining, what is a human face. That's why, we tend to see faces in the dark and everything, because the human brain is always trying to, pick out faces and that. And when something doesn't look quite right, it goes into that uncanny valley, which is what this box set does, where it just doesn't look quite right. It's not quite there. And that's what this box set does. It's just a slight uncanny valley, which it just unfortunately just never ever ends. Bagwell4 says, someone is generally getting paid to put these episodes through AI. Yes, they are. Yep. And to be honest, whoever, to be honest, is paying them to do this could have done it themselves. To be honest, just bought the program, because anyone can do it. Anyone would be, if you have the ability to use a computer, you have the ability to do that, because all you do, dump whatever it is you want to into the AI program, click a button, done. That's it. Wait, I don't know. Wait however long it does to process it, and then it's done. So, yeah. Don't. But before saying, I didn't know that. Shame really, but with videotape there's not a lot you can do. What can they do with Spearhead from Space? So now, Spearhead from Space, if you didn't know, that was shot entirely on 16mm film, which has already had an HD scan. In fact, it had a 2K scan back in, was it 2012 or 2013? It was one of the two. And if you buy that either as the individual Blu-ray, which I don't know if the individual Blu-ray is still in print, actually. I haven't seen it in a while, although to be fair, I haven't been looking for it. Or if you buy it on the Season 7 box set, that is true HD all the way through, and it looks amazing. And technically, if they wanted to, they could release that story on 4K Blu-ray. They could either rescan the film at 4K. Now, 16mm film, there's a bit of an argument there, whether, 4K is beyond what 16mm can show. Because with film, it's not the same as videotape or anything digital, because it's film. It's a chemical process reaction to something. So, yeah, basically, it's accepted that 16mm film is equivalent to 2K. But even then, which, by the way, they damaged the film print for episode 3 of Spearhead from Space when they were doing the film transfer, unfortunately. So whether that could be scanned again, I don't know. But even if they didn't, even if they're stuck with this 2K transfer, 2K can easily be upscaled to 4K. It can easily be upscaled. In fact, a lot of early 4K Blu-rays are 2K upscales. For example, all of the Marvel films up to Ant-Man Quantumania, that was the first Marvel film to be a true 4K. All of the other ones are 2K upscales. The difference is that with 4K Blu-ray is HDR. For example, the Dalek films, the two Peter Cushing Dalek films, they are true 4K transfers. They look absolutely amazing. But what makes them look even better is the HDR, the colours and the contrasts. Those colours are so much more vivid. And obviously the contrast with them, they just never looked better. And Spearhead from Space, even if they're working with that original, with that transfer that was done in 2012, I think it was, whenever that transfer was done, even if they're stuck with that 2K transfer, even if they didn't upscale it or anything else, if they added HDR to it, they did a new HDR version, it would look better. It would look better. Which, because a lot of people said, oh, they'll do 4K versions of Classic Doctor Who later on. No, they're not. No, they're not. That can't be done. And the reason it can't be done is because they're stuck. Like, if you think they look bad with AI upscaling them to HD, they'll look even worse if AI tries to upscale them to 4K. They'll look even worse. So, yeah, no. There's no real reason to do that. But also, even if they did, they wouldn't be able to put HDR onto them, again, without AI. Which, again, that's not real HDR either. Basically, if you want a true HDR, basically, the colour information will not be there. Because HDR is at least 10-bit colour. Blu-ray is 8-bit colour. Like, basically, SDR, or standard dynamic range, is up to 8-bit. Classic Doctor Who is, to be honest, slightly less than that. So, yeah, there's just not enough colour or contrast information there to do, 4K HDR, unless it was something done on film. Which, Spearhead from Space is the only one that is 100% done on film. There are bits and pieces here and there that could be, but that's the only one that's truly on film. And if you want to have a look at what fake HDR looks like, take a look at the Twice Upon a Time 4K Blu-ray. That was upscaled from 1080p to 4K. And then they added fake HDR on top of that because, again, it wasn't shot at 10-bit. It was shot at 8-bit colour, and they've had to fake the HDR, and it just looks horrible as a result. So, yeah. Though, to be honest, a lot of the time the 4K Blu-ray is cheaper than the Blu-ray, and it includes the Blu-ray anyway, so that would be the only reason, really, to pick that version up. But anyway, I digress. Bible 4 says, oh no, film grain is vital for separating the blocks and keeping the quality, but if it's too much green, that's fair, but trimming it completely is bad. Well, black and dark colours you'll get for using otherwise. I'm on a film production course. Bagwell 4 says, I'm on a film production course. Some people have made AI films. Oh god. And I'm like, what's the point? I can't send it. Yeah. Who makes an AI film on a film course? You're not making it. Like, I'm sorry, but an AI film, you didn't make that. You didn't make that. You basically just asked AI to do it for you. That is not making a film. That is not making a film. You're just asking AI to do it for you. You haven't made anything. Like, there's nothing to appreciate there. Like, I could appreciate more, a fucking 5-year-old with a camera making a film more, trying to make a film more than an AI program. Because at least there, they've had a go, they've tried and that. Even if it's shit, it's real. and there's you can say to them, oh yes, here's some options to improve and everything, or how things could be changed here. With AI, no, you can't do that. It's pointless telling the person saying, oh, this film is bad. They won't be able to improve it. It's just, the only thing that could improve it is an AI program. And it depends how smart or stupid, in most cases, that AI program is. So, yeah, that's bloody insane. That's absolutely insane. I'm not surprised that that's happening, but the fact that we've gotten to the stage now where on an actual film course, people are doing AI films. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Seriously. I honestly don't know. I mean, to show how bad AI can be, there's an episode of South Park about ChatGPT. And basically, at the end, Max Stone and Trey Parker got ChatGPT to write the ending of the episode for them. And it just shows how bad it can be. I mean, it was shown to be, it's a good way to basically show just like how you can't use AI to basically even write a script, never mind produce a moving image and the whole thing. And I'm not saying it's not impressive, because some of it can be impressive, that an artificial intelligence is able to do this. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's a good thing instantly. But, yeah, it's... What can I say? I mean, I could talk forever in a day about all the problems of AI and that, and why it shouldn't be used here and why it shouldn't be used there. Like, for me, AI and art, because I would call, filmmaking an art form. I would call that an art form, just like music or anything else. Those two things should not mix. AI and art should not mix. Because, AI has no heart, no soul to it. And that, I've just knocked off a remote. Oh dear. It doesn't have any personal touches to it. Like, for example, pardon me. Could you imagine, if this person did make an AI program and somehow it got popular and made a load of money and that, which I'm not saying it couldn't, and that's because unfortunately there are AI shows coming out, not in this country, but on YouTube there are AI shows out there, mainly for babies, like a lot of like nursery rhyme AI cartoons and stuff like that out there. But like, imagine you did a making of documentary about that. Like, you couldn't talk about it. Like, oh, what did you do? What was the process of making this film? I asked an AI to do it, and it did it. Like, that would be it. You couldn't do anything else. You literally couldn't do anything else. All of these other, like, for example, all of these films and that are, getting re-released and that on Blu-ray and now 4K Blu-ray, and that they have new, for example, they have all these new documentaries and that coming out, and that for them, talking about them, 20 years later, 25 years later, 40 years, 50 years later. Including, the Drop 2 collection box sets. There's the one about, Ian Marter's life and new behind-the-scenes stuff and everything like that. With an AI program and that, with something that was AI, you won't be able to do that. You can't do that. And you couldn't even... The thing is, you couldn't even ask the AI program why it made those decisions, because, again, AI is always changing as well. It's always changing and evolving. And that, so you couldn't ask it why it made these decisions, or if you did, it would just guess and give an artificial answer. pardon me, there's no like talking point about it. Like with with a film or piece of media, whether it's good or bad, there's always something to talk about with it. What led it to, like, if it's bad, you can talk about, okay, what led to these decisions and that, how it turned out this way, and that, what could be improved, what could this, that. With AI, there's nothing to discuss with that. It just, why did it do it like this? Because that's how it was that's what it was programmed to do, and this is what it spat out. That's it. Like, there was no process and that, no thinking about that. That's what it was programmed to do, something, and then it did it. I think I'm getting a bitrate warning, which shouldn't really matter because I'm just doing an audio only stream, and that this time. Let's have a look at the comments again. How long have I been going for, actually? Okay, so here we go. So, Bagwell4 says, yeah, I had a full argument with someone who said, well, I made the prompt. You made a prompt. You basically asked it to do something. It's not the same thing. Like, for example, okay? If I asked an AI program to make, a film or story, that's basically just a pitch meeting premise. Like, that is just basically a pitch for something, which you can just think of off the top of your head. That is just a basic thing. Anyone could think of it. I'm not saying there won't be any thought that goes into it, but that'd basically be it. You wouldn't have to, because when you're making a film, things have to change that along the way. You have to think of budgets and that. You have to think of constraints, or ideas and that may change along the line. When you're basically thinking of that first prompt that comes into your head, and then you just tell it to an AI program, that's it. Not much thought involved at all, if any. Bagwell4 says, yeah, don't get me wrong, it is impressive, but I can't help but feel disappointed when I find out something is AI and just here. Well, I mean, the thing is, generally you can, at least I can. I know not everyone can, but generally, if you're used to seeing things that are AI, you do get used to it, and you are able to spot it. With some things, particularly images, it's getting harder and harder. Or if it's just a short form clip, it is getting hard, because AI is getting impressive in that. Though with longer form stuff, like, 2 episodes, you can still, like, that is much easier to tell. But, yeah. I see what you mean. Josh Adam says, Supercar on Blu-ray is shit, but Australian version will be better. Okay, I don't know what that is, and I don't know why the Australian one will be better. Okay. Joseph Am says, I think season 20 and series 5 will be next. Series 5? What? What do you mean series 5? Now, in terms of the next box set, in terms of the Got 2 box sets, it's either going to be season 11 or season 21. My guess, I don't know. It could be either or, because again, they're working on 21 at the time of doing this live stream. And they've been working on season 11 for 5 years at least. So we don't know. Either one of those will be next. And that, I don't know which one will be, but it'll be one of those two. Series 5, I don't know what Series 5 has to do with it. Series 5 of Doctor Who. Series 5 of Doctor Who is already in HD, available on Blu-ray, regularly available. So I don't know what that's got to do with anything, to be honest, because that's already in true HD and available regularly. So, where did the bloody comments go? Joseph Adams says he doesn't mind season 13 AI looks good. No, it does not look good. It looks fake as hell. It looks fake as hell. It just doesn't look right. I mean, again, I've been talking about this entire live stream, but it's that uncanny valley. It just doesn't look right, and it's not real. What you're looking at is not the real image, and that it's being put through an AI program where AI has basically recreated the image in HD, but it's not the actual thing where you can see, like, everyone looks like they've got autumn masks on the whole time because they've all got really, shiny plasticky looking faces with glass eyes. Anyway, I've already gone on forever about that. I could go on about it till the cows come home, to be honest. So, I'll skip talking about that. Season 7 is crap AI restoration. So, Joseph Adams, so you like the AI upscale of Season 13, you don't like the AI upscale of Season 7, and to be honest, Season 7, it wasn't as bad, that wasn't as bad as the Season 13 one. For one, Spearhead from Space didn't have any AI on it, because it was just, pretty much just a direct re-release with all the special features combined on it for the Season 7 Blu-ray. In terms of the others, the only one that I think, looked bad in that one in terms of the AI was episode 1 of Ambassadors of Death, because that is the only one that had a videotape transfer surviving. And the reason why that's important is because I find if there's a higher quality version of it, they'll generally put it through an AI, and the AI will be able to do more with it, since it'll be a slightly higher quality than the others. So, yeah. Joseph M also says Max Smith is next after season 21. What? Okay, I'm convinced, Joseph Adam, that you're probably a troll. I'm convinced that you're just trolling me right now, because this is just bloody bizarre. Because again, why would you do Max Smith? All of Max Smith's stuff is already in HD. They're not going to do anything with it. It may get re-released on Blu-ray. It already has in America, in that, because they did a series 1 to 13 box set in America, where we got the series 1 to 4 2023 restoration version, which has had nothing but problems. That one wasn't done by the people who do the collection sets. That was just done by the BBC like general disc management service thing, and that one, while it was better than the 2013 Blu-ray versions, and that because at least they were running at the correct frame rate and correct speed, they've had a myriad of issues with those, to be honest. They've a load of problems with them. Yeah, anyway. I got season 7 on VHS. Good for you. I would not watch it that way. As I said, the way I'll be watching season 13 from now on, I'm going back to the DVDs. And that, because they are the best quality possible, where it isn't ruined by an AI program. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to watch from now on. And to be honest, they look fine. And that they look fine, and they're perfectly watchable. And that I'm not saying, that there wouldn't be a difference if those were released on Blu-ray and done the previous way, where they properly restored it and upscaled it. I'm not saying there won't be, but still, DVDs for classic Doctor, when you're watching classic Doctor Who, fine. I wouldn't want to watch the new series that way. At least not anything from 2009 onwards that way. Basically anything HD onwards. Because obviously, I like to watch things in the best quality, in the best native quality possible, shall we say. And if it is upscaled, it's a proper upscale, and not just chucking it in an AI program. But look, stop going away. Okay, Joseph Adams, I'm just going to ignore you from now on. And that, because it's just a load of bollocks coming out of your mouth. Oh yeah, Bagwell4 says, oh yeah, don't get me started on the Wallace and Gromit AI. Yeah, I did a video on that. On the Wallace and Gromit 4K Blu-ray. And at the time, I didn't know that they'd actually used AI for it. And that I didn't know that they'd actually used AI for it. With that one. And with that one, it's a bit weird. And I think that one was less noticeable with that one than the others, is simply because I did notice it on Matter of Loaf and Death the most. And that I noticed it on that one. But on the others, and that the reason those look different is because basically in 2024, I think it was either 2024 or 2023, Shout Factory did a new release of Wallace and Gromit, The Cracking Collection, which is the original 4 short films. And what they did is they did a new 2K scan, or Aardman did a new 2K scan of the shorts. So they were slightly higher resolution than the HD scans that were done for the, I think it was 2009 the original Blu-ray came out. So those were an HD scan, these were a 2K scan, and those 2K scans were used for the 4K Blu-ray, where they were put into an AI upscaler. And since, they were AI was basically, looking at something that was 2K and just having to upscale it to 4K, it didn't have a massive job to do with that, so it didn't do a huge amount. It's also the reason they don't have HDR either. But, yeah. Now, I would say actually the Blu-ray is worth getting, actually, the new Blu-ray of that, the 2024 Blu-ray, the new one. Simply because that one is a 2-disc set, and disc 1 is just reusing the old 2009 Blu-ray. So it's the older version of the restoration and that, and it looks really good, perfectly fine. However, the other disc, the bonus disc, that includes a Grand Night In, which is a documentary about Aardman and Wallace and Gromit, but also it is the only way to get Wallace and Gromit Cracking Contraptions on Blu-ray in HD. It's the only way to get it. It's bizarre. If you don't know, Wallace and Gromit Cracking Contraptions are a bunch of shorts, like 1 to 2 minutes Wallace and Gromit shorts. They're all available for free on the Aardman and Wallace and Gromit YouTube channels. They're all available for free online. But basically, when they were included, the only time they were previously included on a UK release was the 2-disc DVD of Curse of the Were-Rabbit, which is out of print. They were included on the German Blu-ray of Wallace and Gromit, The Cracking Collection. However, for some reason, despite being a Blu-ray disc, they were just the DVD versions. Now, the Shout Factory 2023, I think it was, release of the Blu-ray, that re-released version, where they did the new transfers, they were in HD on that one. But that one wasn't released in the UK, and also the audio was terrible for them. Yeah, if you don't know, also they did do new audio masters for the new Wallace and Gromit releases, and they're terrible. They're new DTS, they're DTS audio masters, whereas the previous one were Dolby ones, and the Dolby ones sound infinitely better. The DTS ones actively sound bad. They sound really thin, a really thin sound, and they've got a metallic edge to them. Like, it just sounds like it's really compressed in comparison. So why they redid the audio for that, no idea, but they made it sound worse. Anyway, that was a tangent about Wallace and Gromit for a bit, which I've also talked about in length. Bagwell4 says, Series 5 of New Who looks fantastic, but Series 4 on Specials Blu-ray doesn't look as good. Why is that in my mind for a while? Okay. So, in terms of Series 4 was the last series of Doctor Who to be filmed in standard definition. And basically, the next Doctor was filmed as part of the Series 4 recording block. So that was filmed in standard definition. Then, for Planet of the Dead was the first ever Doctor Who story natively recorded in HD. It was shot in HD, digitally, and from then on, they were all shot in HD until we then get to the Jodie Whittaker era, where they did a couple that were recorded in 4K, and then from the 60th onwards, they were all done in 4K. But anyway, basically, to be honest, the Series 4 specials, in terms of Planet of the Dead, I think it looks great. I do think it looks great. Bearing in mind, they were learning as they went along as well. They were also learning as they went along. For example, there's some behind-the-scenes information about those specials. And basically, at the time, they were debating whether or not to record them in 4K. Not 4K, in HD. Because, basically, there's a massive difference between recording something in standard definition and high definition. Basically, things would have to be... You'd have to have different lighting for recording in HD. You'd have to also render all the CGI special effects in HD, and they were debating whether to do it, because also it would be more expensive to do it as well. So they were debating whether or not to hold off on, going to HD. That's why you had a lot of programs and that from, continue to be done in standard definition, even all the way up to 2011 and early 2012. You were still getting stuff from the BBC and a bit from ITV as well, of programs that were still shot and made in standard definition. And I'll give you an example. New Tricks. If you ever watched New Tricks, series 1 to 8 were all filmed in standard definition, and series 8 of New Tricks came out in 2011. It wasn't until 2012 that they switched to HD. And that is basically in 2012 with which was basically the digital turnover. That is when everything basically switched over to HD from then on. For example, CBBC. A lot of CBBC shows were only in standard definition until 2012 because, again, they were kind of like, it's a children's show. Do children really care? I mean, if it was me, yes, I would. But a lot of children's shows were still shot in standard definition. That is also the only reason why the Sarah Jane Adventures really was shot in HD. That was one of the only reasons why, is because it was obviously a lot of the same team using the same cameras and that. So Series 3 of the Sarah Jane Adventures onwards were all shot in HD. If they decided not to shoot those specials, those David Tennant specials in HD, the Sarah Jane Adventures would have probably been shot in standard definition, and that for at least, possibly until it ended. And that's at least, until Series 4 with Matt Smith, where they went HD. So, yeah, they kind of weighed things up with that. But that's a little tidbit for you there. But with the Series 4 specials and that, it also depends which version you're watching as well. With the Series 4 specials, buy the original Blu-ray. And when I say the original, I mean the original release. Because some of the re-releases have actually fucked it up a bit. So, yeah, buy the original release of that. Of the Series 4 specials. But, yeah, they look... Those ones generally look great, to be honest. I don't really have a problem with them. And I think the reason they could look worse in places is because, they're still figuring things out. And that in how to shoot things in HD. And that, because, basically the doors are open and that, and they've got to take greater care and greater notice of things and that when they're filming next. Twice Upon a Time had a 4K Blu-ray, didn't it? Yes, I spoke about that. Twice Upon a Time. Do not watch the 4K Blu-ray because it is a fake 4K Blu-ray. Basically, well, not in terms of the disc itself, but what they did is, around this time, the BBC was kind of testing the waters with 4K Blu-ray. But for some reason, rather than releasing, true 4K Blu-rays, what they did is they took HD programs that were filmed in HD and mastered in HD and upscaled them to 4K and added fake HDR. And as a result, they look worse than the Blu-ray versions. But basically, Twice Upon a Time, it looks a mess. It looks an absolute mess. The colours are basically all over the place, a bit mushy. It looks really dark in some places as well. But yeah, the screen just looks a bit of a visual mess. Because basically, as I said before, for a true HDR experience, whatever it is, and that you want to have an HDR version of, it has, if you want it to be true HDR, it has to be 10-bit colour. And Doctor Who at the time was 8-bit was recorded in 8-bit. So the colours, there's not enough colour information there to make it a true HDR experience. That doesn't mean you can't do a fake HDR, which is what they do. For example, Disney Plus is infamous for doing this, for basically doing almost all of their Pixar films and their own films, giving them fake Dolby Vision and fake HDR versions where they just basically, just add it on there. But yeah, it doesn't look right. But they also did the same thing to Sherlock Series 1, which, bearing in mind, that's even older. And that, at least with Twice Upon a Time, it was at the time it was released. But what makes it a shame is now they could do true 4K Blu-rays of new Doctor Who, of New Who. They could, for example, Revolution of the Daleks. That was the first ever Doctor Who story to be natively recorded in 4K HDR. Has never had a Blu-ray release. 4K Blu-ray release, sorry. Then they went back to HD for Flux. And then for the Centenary special for Power of the Doctor, they again filmed it in 4K HDR. And from then on, basically, they were all filmed in 4K with HDR. So, yeah, I'm not saying I would buy all of them and that, but particularly the 60th anniversary specials, if they redid them, if they re-released them as a 4K Blu-ray, I think I'd buy those, mainly because also there were 60th specials. But yeah, I was disappointed that they were never released in 4K with the HDR, unfortunately. I do have 4K HDR downloads of them, which if I was to watch them, those will be the versions I'll be watching. Because obviously, again, I like to watch them in the best quality possible. Bagwell thought maybe it was a bag release of the specials, possibly, yeah, because some of them, they did fuck them up a bit. And that's, I think, on the 2023 Blu-ray, even though they were already in HD, I don't think they told the staff that, who were working on the box sets, because I think they put them through the HD upscaler, even though they were already in HD. I don't know that for certain. I don't actually own that box set for that reason, and various others. If it had all the full-length confidentials on there, then I would have bought it, but I didn't. I do have a rip of that box set, though, because my friend bought that box set, and he, pardon me, ripped it and sent me it over, and I have had a look at it. And, yeah, like, just the episodes themselves, but to be honest, I would, for most of them, I'd just be just as happy watching the DVD, to be honest. And with the specials, I would go back to the original Blu-ray release. Bible 4 says, "Oh wow, it's fake. I gotta buy that as well. I had no idea." As I said, if you are gonna buy Twice Upon a Time, you can buy the 4K Blu-ray if it's cheaper than the regular. Because sometimes I have seen it cheaper than the regular Blu-ray, and if that's the case, you might as well buy it because it includes the regular Blu-ray anyway. So, if you are gonna buy it, and the 4K Blu-ray is cheaper, then just buy that version because it includes the Blu-ray as well anyway. So, in that instant, it doesn't matter. That's the only reason I know what it looks like, is because that's what my friend did. I had it on Blu-ray, and in fact, I think I had does mine have a slipcover? I think mine might have a slipcover. I think mine was one of the first pressings, so I think it might have a slipcover. I honestly can't remember, but he got it later on, and he actually got the 4K Blu-ray because it was cheaper for him to buy the 4K Blu-ray, which included the regular Blu-ray as well, than it was just to buy the Blu-ray. And again, he sent me a rip of it over so I could have a look at it and just compare it. I didn't watch it all the way through, I only watched a few scenes in it, mainly just to A/B compare it. I was just like, not watching this version. No way. But that's also why, if you went and watched it on iPlayer right now, actually, that's the point. You might notice, and that's the version, you will not be getting these AI versions on iPlayer or anything like that, or anywhere else. And the reason is because basically the BBC doesn't consider that these versions a de facto in terms of, okay, that's the version we're going to use for anything. It did previously, but not with these. And I'll give you an example. It's a bit hit or miss, but for example, the masters that they use, for example, when they go on iPlayer or a streaming service, the masters that they use are the latest scanned versions and that. But they're not doing it with the AI ones. So it kind of shows even the BBC doesn't consider them to be, like a default de facto one to shove out there. Because, for example, stories like Earthshock and that, if you watch the Tales of the TARDIS version on iPlayer, that's the Blu-ray version that has the new HD scans. I don't know if they've updated the individual episode versions. I don't know. I do know Doctor Classic Doctor Who is meant to be leaving BBC iPlayer, with the exception of Genesis of the Daleks, though I don't know if they've renewed that, because someone posted on Twitter the other day saying, it only has 8 days left. Though, saying that, this has happened before, because BBC and that on iPlayer, they can just renew it. And that. So I don't see why they won't, to be honest. I'm curious. I'm going to look on there now, actually. And check. And see what classic says with Classic Doctor Who. So, I don't know. Yeah, it now says available for over a year. So they have renewed it. So, okay, so I was right. To whoever that person was on Twitter who said, Doctor Who's going to be leaving BBC iPlayer, I actually replied to them saying they'll probably just renew it. And they have, so it now says available for over a year. So yeah, it isn't leaving BBC iPlayer. Because I think it's one of the most watched things on BBC iPlayer, so, they'd be stupid to get rid of it. It's like The Simpsons is one of the most watched things on Disney+. To be honest, I don't really watch it on iPlayer, to be honest. As again, if I'm going to watch it, I want to watch it in the best quality possible, generally. There are a few exceptions. For example, I do watch the Tales of the TARDIS version of The Mind Robber. And I say the Tales of the TARDIS version because that's actually a new transfer, a new restoration. And that only because for the Tales of the TARDIS version, they used a newly done restoration for it, where they did a new scan of it, which includes episode 5. Because if you didn't know, episode 5 is on 35mm film. It was shot on 35mm film, and that film still exists. So not only is that true HD, they could do a true 4K of it. Just episode 5 though, the rest of it was basically filmed on videotape. But episode 5 was done on 35mm film. So yeah, episode 5 of The Mind Robber, watch the Tales of the TARDIS version until it gets released on Blu-ray. Because that version, episode 5, is true HD when you get to that part of it. And the rest of it is a new restoration anyway, so it does look better. Even if you're watching it on iPlayer, which obviously, you're streaming it on there. Also worth to note, on the season 13 box set. This is a little bit weird. So, Pyramids of Mars is spread across 2 discs on this box set. And for some reason, we get a condensed version of the Tales of the TARDIS version of Pyramids of Mars. The thing is, I would have thought they would have done one of 2 things. Either just use the clips of Ncuti Gatwa at the start and the end, and that'd just be it. But no, it's a 20-minute version with just condensed clips in between. Really weird version. And that on there. Like, the thing is, they could have fit the full thing on there, though. Like, there's barely anything on that. What is on that disc, actually? Sorry, I'm curious. I need to know now. Because sometimes they waste space on these discs, actually. Whoever is in charge of formatting these discs, you know, and when I say formatting, I mean, like, basically allocating what is on each disc, doesn't do it particularly well, to be honest, in utilising the maximum amount of space on these discs. Come on, wake up. Wake up, hard drive, wake up. Right, here we go. Yeah, so on disc 4, we've got an omnibus version of Pyramids of Mars, which is 1 hour and 2 minutes. We got Tom Baker in Conversation, which is 36 minutes. So those 2 things are in full HD. Well, Pyramids of Mars omnibus is upscaled. Then we've got the Tales of the TARDIS segments. That, oh no, it is the hour. What am I on about? It is the full version. I was thinking it was a 20-minute version. No, it is the full version. Disregard everything I just said. I think it... Okay, you got the option to watch it both ways. Okay, so it is the full Tales of the TARDIS. Why aren't the Tales of the TARDIS for the other box sets on there? I don't know why. But yeah, this is the only Tales of the TARDIS I think you can currently watch without that BBC iPlayer, BBC logo in the corner. Okay, so it is the full version. Yeah. Rant about that aside. But yeah, it must have been something else I was looking at. That wasn't right. But yeah, talks amongst yourselves, everyone, for a couple of minutes, because I need the toilet. Okay, I am back. Almost. Let me bunch along. Right. Where was I? No. Here we go. Bagwell 4 says, unfortunately, I don't have the funds to watch all of it in the best quality possible. BBC is the best I have at the moment, yeah. I mean, there is another option, but it's a naughty option, and I'm not condoning you do the naughty option. Yeah, I'm not saying anyone, should install a program called SoulSeek and go on there and look for me on there and find Blu-ray MP4 rips of all of these box sets and that on there. I'm not saying you should do that at all. I don't condone that. Because as we all know, that's very, very naughty. Isn't that right, Quantum Leap? My sister thanks you for Casualty, Quantum Leap. So if you're wondering why did I suddenly become interested in Casualty, I didn't. My sister is, but she thanks you for what, because she's been non-stop watching that for ages now, and she's bloody annoying the shit out of my mum about it. Anyway, that is a little reference there that no one but two other people are going to understand. Anyway, back to where we were. Okay, Pedro S2000 says, Sinks Alduar. To be honest, I don't know whether to call him Alduar or AI Duar. Because to be honest, sometimes Alduar kind of feels like he's bloody ran by an AI. And that half the time. With some of the decisions and things he does. AI Duar. Anyway, AI Duar confirmed that the Imperial slacks are a new sculpt. I've got the Imperial Dalek next to me. I mean, the thing is, are they a new sculpt or has he just remade the original? And when I say remade the original sculpt, I mean, because the thing is, he probably still has the files for the original sculpt. So, I'll be honest, did he actually make a new sculpt for them? Or did he just use the old file that existed for them and got them to remake it? Because, either way, whatever. Because I've seen comparisons to the two of them, and I'm bloody hard to tell the difference in them. I will say the slat at the front, at least of the one I'm holding right now, it does have a bit of a lumpy bit on it and a slight curve. I don't know. I also will say the paint apps on these slats are not great, and that's not on any of them. I have 5 Imperial sets, Remembrance of the Dark Sex, in terms of the latest one. And it's basically just an army build on Imperials. Also, something, to be honest, I didn't say in my last review of the Remembrance set, but I did say, I think I said this in the Cohill School set, something that I wish he would have done, gave it a new plunger. Because the plunger for the Imperial Dalek, while it is the correct shape in terms of the funnel shape and the cutouts at the end, it is far too stubby. It is a really short plunger, and also it's really thin as well. It's really thin. It should be thicker. It should be a thicker plunger, and it should be longer as well, because, it's barely longer than the gun, to be honest. And as I said, that eye stalk, it's such a shame with the eye stalk with that Imperial, because if you look at it from the side, it looks great from the side and from the back. It's just when you look at it front on, dead on, oh god, what the hell happened there? I mean, mine, doing that gold, doing that inner ring gold doesn't make it look quite as bad. But even so, obviously the whole sculpt is inaccurate, but to be honest, unless, he missed his chance, really, to do this as a new sculpt, to be honest. Really, he really should have put the money into doing a new sculpt of this. I'm not talking about for the B&M range. I'm talking about like you know, when they were doing resale versions. Like, thank God, he did sculpt for the Planet Supreme for its original release, because, to be honest, I don't know if that would have happened. Stuff like that. And also the Special Weapons Dalek. I don't know if stuff like that in Emperor Davros would happen today. I don't think they would happen today, and that if they hadn't have been done in the past during, you know, the Doctor Who kind of figure golden era. Really. So, yeah. We're still meant to get one more exclusive this year, Alduar said in a podcast. Actually, speaking of podcasts, Alduar said a sentence in a podcast where he contradicted himself in the exact same sentence, which is funny. So, in the podcast where Alduar talks about the Anthony Ainley set, which is the latest online exclusive at the time of recording, he says in that podcast that the B&M sets now are just repaints, and he's putting the money towards the online. He's putting the budget towards the online exclusive sets, but there is a B&M set he would like to do, but he's debating whether or not to do it because it'll need a new sculpt, which kind of contradicts what he just said before, where he said, "Oh, they're just repaints." Also, Alduar, you also said on the same podcast, apparently, that the Imperial Dalek slacks are a new sculpt. But also, the more frightening thing, remember the Eve of the Dalek set? That has a new claw arm and a new gun attachment. Those are new sculpts, Alduar. So yes, you still do new sculpts in the B&M sets. It's just either Dalek attachments or a new head sculpt. Pardon me, which is fine. But also the budgets. This is what the thing, he says, saving the budget. Surely the online exclusive and the B&M sets, they'll have two separate budgets because they're two separate lines. They're two separate things. Because I'm sure B&M will not be very happy if you're using money, you know, that they will be, you know, because they're essentially, you know, funding these, essentially. That they're using money that's meant to go towards stuff in their stores for essentially a competitor product. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I don't know. Like, everything Alduar says, you know, he contradicts himself constantly. And basically, you have to take everything he says with not a pinch of salt, more like 2 handfuls of salt. So, yeah, I don't know. I know B&M sets will have a very tight budget for them. But also, speaking of budgets as well, that Anthony Ainley set, no. That is barely above a... Like, the thing is, I'm not saying that could have been a B&M figure release. Doesn't feel like a Vortex... Well, I say it doesn't feel... It isn't a Vortex edition figure. It's not a Gen 3 body. Apart from that head, basically being a ball joint, nothing about it is a Gen 3 body. Nothing about it. The arms are still those ping joint ones, and that, which they can't really rotate because the torso gets in the way. So, yeah, like, 45 quid. It's not worth 45 quid. It's not. I like it. I like the set. It's not, you know, it's not £45 worth of stuff in that set, to be honest. Nah. If it was 30, I'd go okay. Also, how come, you know, back in 2022, you were able to do the Silurian 3-pack which, you know, reused some parts, but also had some new parts to it, because it reused bits of the Sea Devil figure. And, you know, with the Anthony Ainley, it's reusing basically bits of the Delgado Master. So, but that set was 30 quid. This one's 45. And also, again, how come literally last year you were able to do 2 brand new figures in a 2-pack, sort of, because they were separately boxed, and those, which are still on the website, that was 40 quid. And to be honest, next year, if it goes up to 50, to be honest, I might tap out at that point. If it goes up to 50, I might just tap out and that. And to be honest, you know, it's only because you got very good on the selections of these. Like, if it's a figure I'm not that interested in, I'm not buying it at 45 quid. If it was a B&M release, you know, I might go, yeah, all right, you know, just to have it in the collection. But the online exclusives, I'm being very bloody selective about them. And also, unlike the B&M sets, I'm not buying loads of them. I can't afford to. And that either. And two, I kind of feel a bit ripped off every time. B&M sets, you know, I can buy them kind of down the line as well. They're good for, like, army building is a perfect thing. Like, again, like, people buy, like, the Revenge of the Cybermen set. That is the best 3-pack we've had for years. That is the best 3-pack we've had for years. And that, you know, it has a couple of problems with it. And that, but otherwise, fantastic. I've got 5 of them. I bought 5 of them in total. I'm not planning on getting any more unless they go on sale. Also, here's a weird thing actually. I've been going into a couple of B&Ms recently, and they've got new stock of the Resurrection sets in on the shelves from last year, which is really weird. It's really weird to see, like, you know, because before they didn't have any Resurrection sets and that, you know, and I thought, oh, well, you know, sold out and that. But yeah, the only thing I can think of is that basically, you know, this is my theory. So Resurrection sets were still, you know, sitting in basically the warehouse, their main central warehouses, until these new sets came out, the Remembrance set, and obviously they realised, oh, we need to make some space here, just send out those last few Resurrection sets out and that to stores and that, because they need the space for the new sets. That's the only thing I can think of. And that, because yeah, it's a bit weird being seeing these pop up recently and that at multiple B&Ms where they've suddenly got a load of Resurrection sets back in, which are 15 quid and that, which for me, you know, I mean, if you've seen my review, you know why I've got a problem with that set. I still don't know why Parting of the Ways set hasn't gone on sale, or whether last year's 3-pack hasn't gone on sale either. Because if they did, I'd buy both of them. Again, I'd buy more of them. Because that Parting of the Ways set, it's perfect for army building a bronze Daleks and that. But I'm not buying any more at that full price. Same with last year's 3-pack. I would like to buy more, to at least one more, to kind of army build Cybermen. Like Series 6 Cybus one, where they've got the new plate on. But again, especially with that one, I'm not paying £22 for another figure. So, yeah, I don't know why those aren't on there, on sale. Bit weird. Anyway. What do I think of the gold colour on the Imperial hemispheres and slacks? Well, as a toy version of it, I think it's fine. Obviously, it doesn't match that sort of foil and that texture that looks. There is a prototype. In fact, I showed it in a YouTube short. I think it was either last year, it was 2023, it was one of the two, where there was a prototype. I think it was of the Cohill School version of it, actually, where it had the foil effect and it had this really vivid gold colour. And basically, the B&M version does not have that. It's a shame, but if it was a cost thing, I can, fine. Because to be honest, if that was an online exclusive, like, it would have been bloody 45 quid, and it would not have been fucking worth it. And that, so with that, I can kind of go, okay, no, with that. So, yeah, where's the microphone? There's the microphone. I have got a bad back. It is bloody aching. Where was I? Bagwell4 says, yeah, definitely going to install Soulseek. Is it completely free? Asking for a friend. Yeah, Soulseek, if you don't know, is basically a file sharing program. It is a peer-to-peer file sharing program. Basically, what you're doing is essentially you are downloading files from someone else's computer. That's what it is. You can you can share files. You can select files on your computer to share yourself that people can download from you, and also you can download from other people as well. That's basically what it is. And you can choose whether to share files or not. And that I recommend you at least give the option to share a few files, simply because some users on there have it where they'll only allow you to download from them if you're sharing files yourself. Not all of them do that, but some do. But yeah, just an option. Predator says, the new Remembrance iStorg is crap. The discs are the wrong order, wrong size, and they are way too thin. Too thin? Are you talking about the discs? Right, because the eye itself is maybe slightly too large in terms of the ball at the end. But yeah, it's not the worst thing out there, to be honest. In terms of the rest of it, it's mainly at the front there, that lip on it. Oh, anyway. Haha, the Planet Supreme and Special Weapons Dalek are way too accurate to be made by Aldebar. Well, here's the thing. A lot of the earlier releases, were not made exclusively by Aldebar. In fact, they were made by a team of people. I'll give you an example. PB Props was involved with a lot of the Doctor Who figures, and that during the late 2000s. For example, he was basically responsible for stuff like the more accurate NSD sculpt. He's also responsible for the 7th Doctor TARDIS. And only the 7th Doctor TARDIS. Because he did a video talking about it, and the original plan was to do basically a unique sculpt for each individual TARDIS. But what they ended up doing is basically as soon as they got the 7th Doctor TARDIS, what they just did after that is just redo the ruse for all the others to save money. Essentially. So, yeah. And also something they did on the classic TARDIS as well, which is still technically part of it. Originally, they gave it the wood grain effect, which they did with the new series TARDISes, even though... And PB Props said, look, these classic boxes do not have that. They have a lumpy effect to them because of the amount of paint and that's being slapped on them. So basically, they put this like lumpy effect over the top in there, but there's still signs of the wood grain being there underneath that. They basically modified it to have that, because otherwise they would have that same wood grain effect that the new series boxes have in terms of the David Tennant and Matt Smith ones. So yeah. Also, a good example is the Fourth Doctor Head sculpt. The original Fourth Doctor Head sculpt was not made by Aldoir. The original one that is used for the has been used for the vast majority of Fourth Doctor figures. And what was great about that one was it's a modular one, because the hair, since the hair is a separate piece, it meant it was modular, so you could make a new hat or something like that, and not have to change the head every single time. It was a great sculpt that, but basically. The same, I can't remember the name of the guy off the top of my head, unfortunately, but basically, if you have the Product Enterprise Fourth Doctor, you'll notice the head on that looks suspiciously like the Character Options version. At least the original one. And the reason is they were made by the same person. They were done by the same guy. So, yeah. But the Terror the Zygons Fourth Doctor head, that was done by Aldoir. And oh boy, the difference. Bloody hell. When a head sculpt that is, it's probably, that's at least 20 years old, looks better. Like, you can have all the technology you want, doesn't mean it looks any better. You can have it be the bloody highest resolution digital sculpt, doesn't mean it's going to look better. So yeah, they got the original. So apparently they, according to this, so let me say this again, tongue twister. Pedo S2000 said they had to get the original sculptor back for the Anthony Ainley head, and yeah, you can. To be honest, it didn't look like a modern Aldoir head, because it actually looks good. I wish it was painted. But that sculpt, it looks excellent. It does look excellent. Excellent. But yeah, that head sculpt, it looks excellent. I wish it was painted, because basically flesh tones, they just never look right when they're just moulded in that colour. I will say they're getting slightly better at it, but it's never going to look as good as paint. And I know there's going to be the excuse of, oh well, it covers up part of the sculpt. The thing is, when they applied the paint correctly, like the right amount, which is just a small amount, a thin amount of paint, it really didn't. Look at the Richard Hurdle figure. Look at the David Bragley figure. They look excellent. They look great. So, no, not really. Some of them, they did apply too thick, but to be honest, the quality control with them had gotten pretty solid by that point. And then to, go to this, yeah. I mean, it's a cost-saving measure as well. It is a cost-saving measure. And ironically, it works fine with non-human flesh tones. Like, Emperor Davros, his head is just moulded in that colour with a wash on top. That looks fine. Because obviously it's a non-human thing. It looks perfectly fine done like that. But when you're trying to get a flesh tone, it's kind of like the same thing with the AI and that upscales in season 13. I knew we'd get around back to that. It just doesn't... The flesh tones don't look quite right. You know, they're slightly off. That's the same with the AI upscales as well. The flesh tones aren't quite right, and it's the same with these figures that are moulded, or close as they can moulded to the colour. Doesn't look right. Just doesn't look right. Excuse me. Whereas with paint, you know, you can get much, much closer to it. Where are we? Okay, Pedro said, thank you, Pedro, for telling me this. So, Andrew Teal is the one who makes the original Fourth Doctor smiling head and the Anthony Ainley head. So that's the guy I couldn't remember the name of before. Getting back together on like 6. Yeah, his heads. Oh God, I was about to say he has the best head. Gives the best heads. He gives the best heads. Oh God. Well, I've said it now. Well, he does give the best heads. He does do the best heads. But it's true. It's true. He does. He really does. And that, you know, they look excellent. Was he responsible for the Colin Baker head? I can't remember. I really can't remember. I think he might have been involved with that one, but I don't know if he did that one But I don't know if he did it exclusively or not. But yeah, get him back. Get him back to do the bloody head sculpt, like, of things. Like, seriously, if he had done the season 8 head, the season 7 John Pertwee head sculpt, it would look so much better. To be honest, it's not an awful sculpt, the series 8, season 7 John Pertwee head from the online exclusive. It's just painted really badly. The eyes are big blue colour. Big blue eyes, which he really shouldn't have. Like, I've seen people repaint that head. It looks so much better. Also, Alderaan did not use his Terror of the Zygons head sculpt, even though it existed. Like, there was a prototype for the Terror of the Zygons 4th Doctor, and Alderaan, again, I said this in my review, Alderaan decided not to use it and made his own. And it looked shit. Basically. In comparison, at least. In comparison. If you had it in a vacuum, it would look fine. But when you compare it to what we had previously... Oh. Yeah, it does use the... Well, it mostly reuses the Delgado body. It mostly reuses the Delgado body, the Anthony Ainley figure. But part of it is new. For example, the neck section. I think part of the neck section and that is new because obviously it has the ball jointed head on there. So that section is new. But yeah. Basically, could that Anthony Ainley figure be a B&M release? Like, the thing is, he's one cut above a B&M release. Although, to be honest, if he was released, if that set was released at B&M, they could have done it for 25 quid, maybe 30 at B&M. Let's be real. Let's be real. If that set probably could have been released at B&M. And that, like, it would have, probably would have maxed out the budget. Though, to be honest, if you got rid of, like the remains of the master and also the chest that holds it, if you got rid of those and that, and just had the new head with the TC and the new torso, new, like, basically PVC over the torso bit, that might have just barely been in the realms of a B&M release. Or if not, make it a slightly more expensive one. I don't know. Hello, Argman27. Hello. Pedro says, Andrew 2 was probably involved with the Sixth Doctor because he worked on the design and they made the classics. Yeah, because he was... Because he was working on that. I think he also worked on various others as well. Well, okay, well, I think he was involved with the Sixth Doctor, and I don't know what else he could have been that involved. Probably the Fifth Doctor as well, like that entire wave, because he was just involved. Like he was just like kind of a member of Aldebar's team around that time. No. But yeah, they also made the classic Dalek body. I think PB Props might have had some involvement with those. I'm not sure. He obviously was involved with the new series ones and the classic TARDISes. I don't know if he was involved with that. He was involved with the making of the classic Sonic Screwdriver as well. Speaking of which, I basically got yesterday the Toy Ink American version of the 14th Dr. Sonic Screwdriver, which has that blue emitter, basically. And it arrived from Amazon. In fact, it arrived in because it's on sale on Amazon at the minute for £26. They send it in a paper bag, by the way. In a paper bag. And basically, this arrived yesterday. In fact, no, not even yesterday. It arrived on Friday. And it was left out in the rain. They left it outside my house in the rain. And I was out at the time, unfortunately. So it was when I got back. And the thing is, though, they hadn't knocked on the door. My dad was in the house at the time, and they didn't knock on the door. They just dropped it and left it out in the driveway, in the rain, in a paper bag. By some fucking miracle, it had survived. Like, perfectly survived intact. It was actually, the Sonic Screwdriver itself was actually in plastic wrapping inside this paper bag, so it amazingly survived. And I thought, oh, you know what? Since this one has survived intact, I'm going to keep it in box and I'll buy another one. And I bought another one which arrived today. And I've had to send it back because as soon as I opened it, basically the battery, the bit that you twist to pull off the battery compartment, that immediately dropped off as soon as I cut the twist tie. Because it had actually, basically, it hadn't been glued together. The handle section, the bottom section of the handle, the very end piece, the end cap, hadn't been glued in, so it just dropped down. And also then, when I tried to, I thought, oh, maybe I can glue it back on, and that. And then when I put it back onto the battery compartment hadn't been glued in either, and that came off. So it was just the wires hanging out. So basically, whoever done this, manufactured this one, hadn't glued the battery compartment to the rest of the Sonic, and also hadn't glued the end piece to the rest of the Sonic, because the whole thing just came apart. So I sent it back, unfortunately, and I don't know whether I'm going to order another one. To be honest, I might not bother, because, yeah, it didn't feel very good build quality. to be honest. But what's interesting about that one, and why it might be like that, is because that one, although that one is an officially licensed release, it's an official release in the US, it's actually manufactured by the same company that makes the bootleg character Sonic screwdrivers. And that's not a lie, that actually is. The same manufacturer manufactures the US version of the 14th Dr. Sonic screwdriver. It's the same company. Same manufacturer that makes them. They're made in the same factory. So, yeah. There you go. There's a fun little fact for you. Family. Pregdog 2000 says, Design Works were like CO's main partner for the classic series from 2008 to 2013, which, yeah. Design Work, if you didn't know, Design Works Windsor were basically people responsible for a lot of the sculpts and that, or designs for the sculpts during that time, which, you know, most of them were the Forbidden Planet exclusives, which, to be honest, I prefer it. I actually preferred it when they were Forbidden Planet exclusives rather than the online exclusives. Because at least with the Forbidden Planet exclusives, at least for me and other people on that, you could go to a shop and look at them and pick the best one. And if there was anything wrong, you could take it back to a shop. I know, obviously, you know, not everyone has a Forbidden Planet near them and that, but still, I much preferred it when you could go to a shop than with online. I really don't like dealing with online stuff, to be honest. And, you know, in the past couple of years and that, I've been heading towards, if I can buy it in a store and that, you know, for the same price as online, I will, generally. The only times now I will buy it online is if generally that'll be the only option. And that, or, you know, it is significantly cheaper. Like, you know, the reason I buy, for example, I would buy the Doctor Who season box sets from an HMV store if they had any stock in. Unfortunately, I tried to do this with the past 2 seasons when I went into HMV stores. Couldn't do it. They sold out immediately, like physically in the store, their stock. Which is really weird because they would then get stock later, but whatever. Oh well. Yeah. Bit odd. I mean, thankfully my first this time around, my first copy of season 13 arrived undamaged, thankfully. So, yeah. Hooray. Where am I? Yeah, Gordon Bennett is alive. Gordon Bennett says, what do you think of Vogue Saxon 07 being the toy maker? To be honest, the toy maker's more fun. Yeah. Yeah, toy maker's too fun for that piece of shit. Excuse me. Given how the revised mold NSD has the same proportions as classic series dark skirts, heavy props would probably be involved. Well, the thing is, the classic series Dalek skirts and the NSD skirts are different, which is really weird because they really shouldn't be, but they are different. They're not exact to each other. In terms of the steepness, like the NSDs have a steeper skirt and that, which again is a little bit odd. Because Because obviously, if you know your Dalek prop history, basically the skirts for the NSDs was taken from a Shortcraft replica. Basically, the skirt, because basically they needed a skirt for the Mike Tucker needed basically to finish the original, bronze Dalek pretty quickly, and so what he did is he took this guy's replica of an original Shortcraft Dalek skirt, took that skirt, and basically, obviously repainted it, added the sort of raised bits for the hemispheres, and obviously added a new fender to it. And then the BBC then made copies of that. So all of the bronze Daleks essentially have, replica skirts of Shortcraft, the original Shortcraft skirts. Which, to be honest, I prefer those. I prefer those to the 80s ones, which were actually based off, which were actually used for expedition molds, actually, that were used for the 80s molds. Right. Is that it for the comments? Oh, no, there's more. I want to get them to load. Pardon me. Let me read this one. Pedro says, I heard some rumours that allegedly Mike Tucker wanted to base the NSD on the Necros Dalek's skirt and shoulder, but RTD denied. RTD denied it. Don't know, because basically Mike Tucker's NSD is kind of a bit of everyone's kind of favourite bits of the Dalek. For example, the dome lights and that were based upon the movie Dalek dome lights, because basically people really liked them. I can't remember who it was. I think it was either Mike Tucker or someone else really wanted it to have a claw arm, like the movie Daleks did as well, though it was RTD who said, no, it's got to have a plunger. It's iconic and that, so it's got to have a plunger. Though, obviously, they would revisit that with the Assault Dalek. And that. And I do like the Assault Dalek claw. I don't like the Chibnall era Dalek claws. I really don't like their ones. I mean, they weren't ever used either. They were never ever used on screen. And I've checked Eve of the Daleks, and I've checked Revolution of the Daleks. They never use the claws. They're never even opened. Someone thought they were open. They weren't, and in fact, I checked the scene that they were talking about again, even though I'd literally watched it and was checking the whole time. The claw is not open. In that scene that person was talking about, what it's missing is it's missing the little bits of rubber in between the claws, so it looks like it's kind of open, but it's actually not. It's actually closed. But yeah, they switched back to plungers for Power the Doctor, though they switched to these new smaller plunger cups at the end. The actual plunger cups at the end were smaller, which look a little bit odd, to be honest. Where am I? Dr. Sam says, no, Mike Tucker wanted the NSD. No, Mike Tucker wanted NSD colours, but RTD said he wanted. But RTD said no, he wanted golden bronze. No, RTD didn't say golden bronze. RTD said copper and bronze. That's actually what RTD actually said. Copper and bronze. And if you look at the behind the scenes, he did actually say copper and bronze. Though it was more of a gold, the Mike Tucker one. But I think that's probably why they ended up being redone as in that copper colour. The more copper bronze colour. In Parting of the Ways, where they were all, repainted. Well, I say all. The one MT1 was repainted to that, because they also simplified it a bit. But RTD basically wanted it to look like copper and bronze. And that. I think it's also in the Confidential as well that they say that. Copper and bronze. Where am I at? Classic colours. Pirate said, if they redesign the... No. I'm going to stop you there. Do not redesign the Daleks. Don't. The Daleks are not like the Cybermen where they're constantly... Like, Daleks, you shouldn't redesign it. It's an iconic... Like, look at what happened the last two times they tried to redesign the Daleks. You had during the Chibnall era, and basically the thing is, and this is true, they won't like to admit it, but it was basically the reconnaissance Dalek was essentially a test run for basically a new design of Dalek. But they knew what happened with the paradigms. Basically, they remembered what happened with the paradigms, so they didn't want to go all in with it. So basically, that was kind of a soft test run for it. And obviously, then they changed it to it's the defense drones type of thing, which they made two of. But yeah, they didn't want to kind of go all in and fuck it up. Because, again, on both occasions, they've both gone back to the bronze design afterwards. And that. And kind of changed their story on it. Like, basically, Stephen Moffat, said, let's change the Daleks and everything. And then, by the time we get to Asylum, he goes, the paradigms were never meant to replace the bronze design, even though that was a lie. That wasn't the case, because after... Victory of the Daleks, we never saw the NSD design, in the show again until Asylum, because all the other appearances of the Daleks, whether it was on screen in the Pandorica Opens, or the cameo in the Wedding of River Song, or, and here's the biggest plus for it, City of the Daleks, which is a canon Doctor Who adventure game, and that it is canon. All of the Daleks in there are paradigms. All of them. In fact, there's a factory bit that you go through, and all of the Daleks that are being made in there, all of them are the paradigms. And in all the Doctor Who comics and that were released around that time, all of them are paradigms, so yeah. Basically, that didn't go well. Like, I'm not saying you can't do little things here and there, like the colour change and that, or slight little tiny tweaks here and there. And that, but the overall design, you shouldn't change it. It's too iconic. It's not like the Cybermen, where they're constantly changing. Daleks, you don't change that iconic look. You can't. Like, the Daleks, to be honest... Even the police box, right? Even the TARDIS itself, the exterior, the police box, that has changed more over the years than the Daleks have. That has changed over the years more than the Daleks have. I mean, part of that, was they were literally using the original shortcraft props from the 60s all the way up until really the end of the 1980s. Even when they did have some newer props. And then with the NSDs, even though they've made new ones over the years, they're still using the same molds and that, or copies of them. So, yeah, don't change them. I mean, Doctor Who's not coming back for a while anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Give me a second, I'm going to have a drink of water again. I got some Volvic water from Asda today, 1.5 litre for 88p. Not bad. Not bad. Drink plenty water, kids. Don't get kidney stones like I did back in 2023. Where am I at? Pedro S2000 says, what do you think of Mono Supreme getting free samples since he reviewed the Resurrection set and the Third Doctor set? Oh god, Mono Supreme. Here's the thing with Mono Supreme. I'm not going to talk about him hugely, but we did used to interact actually a few times. I wouldn't call us friends, and that we're now really fine, but we did have a couple of discussions here and there, and I haven't spoken to him in ages. But the last few times I tried to speak to him, he just did not. He just blanked me. He did just blank me, but. I will say, Mono Supreme has changed. He has changed his tune. And that. And the thing is that, unfortunately, it's not the same. It's happened to all of them, basically. And that, basically, they will change their tune to get those free samples. And I'm going to say that now. Like, they are a lot less harsh on anything. And that. And here's the number one thing they always say. And that they'll point. A lot of them will go, oh, they'll point out something that is wrong with the figure, but then they'll go, oh, but it doesn't matter. Or, oh, the colour of this is wrong, but it doesn't matter. You can just repaint it yourself. Like, I've heard those excuses all the time. Either, oh, it doesn't matter, or, oh, you can just repaint it yourself. These are not fucking kits and that you put together and that. Like, this is a finished product that you're meant to buy and it's all finished. It's not made for a customizer to put together and everything like that, no. But also, I think the thing that gets me the most about Mono Supreme, fucking hell, his thumbnails. I will say his thumbnails. Jesus Christ. Like, clickbaity thumbnail face, I mean, I understand why you have to do, those thumbnails and that, but seriously, those ones, just with the open mouth going, ooh, or the, ooh, type face, like, oh god, I guess, I can't watch his videos, they're just too cringy, looking at those thumbnails, and to be honest, if you were to ask me what Doctor Who YouTubers do I watch now, the answer's none of them. The answer is none of them, because I find not a single one, and that I find, gives an honest review anymore. Or at least out of the ones that I used to watch, not a single one seems to give an honest to God, 100% honest review and that anymore, unfortunately. At least out of the ones that I've either watched over the years or I've seen, and that, which is unfortunate. Yeah, but I don't really like. I still watch Batman March's reviews when he does them. Though that is mainly because it's more of a figure showcase than a review more than anything else, a lot of them. I mainly watch his reviews because it is a good, it's a good chance to get a look at the figure. And that, yeah. But that's basically it. And that, I don't watch his podcast reviews and that anymore, or anything like that, because unfortunately, I feel like a lot of them have gone downhill. And I'll give you an example of how some of them have changed. Stu Bagfull. I used to love watching Stu Bagfull until fairly recently. And that is because now, and I don't want to stir beef with anyone, because they're free to do this, but this is just my opinion. Stu Bagfull's reviews now seem to be more concerned with how he thinks the audience are reacting to something rather than his actual opinion. And I'll give you an example of this. When he did his review of Doctor Who Season 1 2024, he was more concerned about how a new audience would be reacting to this rather than what his actual opinion on something would be a lot of the time. Or how something might offend someone or something like that. Because, like, you know, for me, when I'm reviewing something, I'm coming at it from my point of view. I think when you're reviewing something, particularly when you're a solo creator and that, I think the review should be biased. I think the review should be your own opinion. And that's just me. That's just me. And people are free to do whatever they want and that with that. But I feel like, you know, when I can respect someone more when they give an honest opinion about what they actually think about something, and that, rather than, you know, worrying about what someone else might think about that. I don't know, it seems really weird. But to be honest, you know, also another reason I don't watch them is, a reason I didn't used to watch them is because I didn't want their videos to cloud my judgment on something. I wanted to have my own opinions on it. And that was a reason why I didn't watch them as much back then. Now I don't watch them simply because, you know, they just go bleeping off the same points. It kind of, some of their reviews and that of clips I've seen almost feels like they've got the same review and it's just copy pasted to each other. And some of them feel less like a review where they're reviewing something. It feels more like they're giving a visual description of what we can see with our eyes. And that. Like, some of them go into a load of detail about talking about things we can see with our eyes. Which, you know, is something I generally don't do anymore. And that, unless it's something worth mentioning or or it's a segue to something I think about it. And that. But, yeah, I don't generally do the audio description thing of something you can see, you know, with your own eyes. But, yeah, I think I went on a tangent on that about that. But yeah, it is a shame. There is one person I watch who I wouldn't call a Doctor Who YouTuber, though he does review episodes every now and again. What's his name? What is his name? Hang on. I'll have to find him. Here we go. Stam Fine. Stam Fine, his basically reviews or retrospectives on each season of Doctor Who. Those videos are great. Those are great videos. And that. So, yeah. Where am I? Here we go. Pedro says, which redesign would you say is better, the paradigms or the defense drones? Okay, this is the one occasion where you'll hear me defend the paradigms. They were a better design than the defense drones. Because, I mean, both strayed away from the original Dalek design too much, way too much. But the paradigms did it less than that. And also but I still don't like them that much. I still don't like them. Like, the thing is, I think I've appreciated them more now, as things have gone on, and they weren't like they didn't replace the original design. They were kind of a thing that were here 1 minute and then gone the next. Yeah. So yeah. Also, as a figure as well, it's a nice figure as well. Like the reconnaissance drone, even though I hate the design, that's a really nice figure. That is a really good figure. And that the paradigms, they're made of a really brittle plastic. Actually, they're made of a really brittle plastic in comparison to like all the other Dalek figures. The plastic on those is really, really brittle, and that in comparison to the rest of them, they do feel a lot cheaper. And it's probably because since they were larger, they wanted to save some money and cheaped out on the plastic. The Doctor 11 says, vote Saxon 07 unalived 2 people because Aldebar didn't send him review copies. I mean, that wasn't the reason why, but okay. We won't talk about him anymore. That person. But yeah. What was I going to say? Thinky. Yeah, sorry. I'm kind of losing track here. So yeah, if there's any other questions on that you would like to ask or answer on that, please put them in the comments now. Otherwise, I'll probably wrap things up. I haven't had my tea yet, actually, to be fair. But yeah, in terms of things to come in that next year, because also Aldebar said, actually this is what I wanted to discuss. Aldebar said he was gonna shake up the B&M set, so revise the strategy or something with them. He was gonna change them up a bit, the strategy with them, which I don't know what he kind of means by that. He was gonna like does he mean that he's gonna change what gets released or what? Because the thing is, Aldebar probably would have stopped releasing Daleks by now, almost certainly, if it wasn't for B&M. Because B&M, I mean, Aldebar would not like to admit it, but B&M do have a say in what's released. Like, that's why we only get 1 3-pack now, instead of 4, which is what we were getting before. And it's why, we're getting four Dalek sets a year, and that, with 1 3-pack and another, other set of whatever the fuck it is. Basically, B&M kind of, determine that. Like, they can both give suggestions on both things, but B&M will be the ones who will essentially give the final answer, because they're the ones, paying the bill. They're the ones who say, oh, we don't want this, or, we want this type of thing. So I don't know what he means about, revising the B&M releases or something. I don't know what he means by that. Now, apparently, next year, B&M are going to announce what all of the online exclusives are going to be right at the start. They're not going to do the thing of basically, wait until they're released and then, just show them off. Like, they're not going to show off the figures, I think. I think they're just going to tell us what they are. And that. And I think one of the reasons they might be doing this is to try and stop the leaks, because the thing is, Character and Aldebar particularly hates it when things get leaked. Particularly Aldebar, because Obviously, he likes to be the one with all the limelight and that, but the thing is, sometimes Alduar is the one himself who leaks things. Like, for example, the photos from the toy fair that showed the 15th Doctor figure and the Sonic Screwdriver and the Beat Meat plush. Alduar was the one who took those pictures. You weren't actually allowed to take pictures at that toy fair, but Alduar took those pictures and sent them to people. And those people sent them to other people and eventually got out there. And, yeah, I don't think Alduar was too happy about that. Don't think he was too happy. Yeah, in terms of the Anthony Ainley figure, and that, because normally they're pretty good at keeping online exclusives behind wraps. We only found out about this one because, much like with the History of the Daleks sets, someone tried to sell their promotional copy on eBay, their sample copy. And if you remember, that's how we found out about History of the Daleks sets. Or should I say I did, because that was what started. That was how Alduar first found out about me, because I was first on the scene with that, and a lot of people linked back to me as the person who originally saw them on eBay. And that was only because it was COVID. We were locked in our houses. And basically every day I was just scrolling eBay for new listings of Dalek figures and that every day. Because, didn't have much better to do. And there you go. So, yeah, ever since then, we started a beautiful relationship, didn't we, Alduar? I forgot what I was saying, actually. But yeah, they're gonna announce all of them, so we'll know what they are. Now, Alduar did reveal there was meant to be 5 online exclusives this year, but because of the Anthony Ainley figure, the 5th one got pushed back to February next year. So, basically, I don't know whether that means we'll get 5 next year or 6. Don't know. If we get 6, then we'll get 1 every other month. Speaking of Doctor Who stuff, actually, my Hatchet next 4 issues of the Hatchet Dalek should get delivered tomorrow, so you might see a video on that tomorrow, possibly. I don't know, it depends. Depends what time I decide to put it together, or if I do decide to put it together tomorrow. Sometime next week, maybe tomorrow, maybe later on, but you'll get another video of me putting Hatchet Dalek together. To be honest, for the next 10 issues, it's not going to be very interesting. We're basically I've had a look up to issue 54 in terms of the PDFs, and we're basically just working on the wheels for the foreseeable future. Do you think it's a downhill for the next Blu-rays with the AI process? Okay, you've missed. Okay, when this live stream is over, re-watch the first bit because I go into that. But basically, AI is not the downhill. AI is the fucking death of these. Season 13, in terms of the episodes themselves, unwatchable. If you want, I did discuss this though for over an hour at the start of the live stream, and I don't want to do it again because my voice is starting to go. Because I've been on here now for a bloody ages. How long has this stream been going on for? I need to have a look. Hang on. Bloody hell! I've been going for over. I've been non-stop talking for 3 hours. Jesus Christ! Apart from when I went to go have a piss earlier. Pedro says, it's kind of funny how Alduar has dug himself into such a deep hole that he doesn't even talk in online exclusive reveals vids on their YouTube anymore. Yeah, There was a YouTube video for the Anti-Ainley figure on the official Character Options YouTube channel. I haven't watched it. There wasn't really a point in watching it either. Also, they're really badly made, a lot of them. Particularly the early ones. Where there were... I remember the first couple wearing 360p for some reason. But yeah, they didn't look like they should be on, you know, a toy manufacturer's YouTube channel. They do look better now, but even so. Like, the thing is, if you're giving them out to reviewers anyway, like, what's really the point? Though then again, there are some people he gives them to and just gives them away. Like, there are some people who don't even post a picture of them that Alduar gives them to. Anyway, like basically, Alduar gives them to people who basically praise Alduar, and that's it. Proto says, and Alduar never does announcements or reveals for B&Ms, the figures these. Yeah, Alduar doesn't like the B&M range. To be honest, he doesn't give a shit about it. Like, to him, the B&M range is just like, oh, for your pesky commoners, and that, buy the online exclusives and that, you know, like as I said, if Alduar was in charge, he would have stopped the B&M range. But the B&M range is what brings in the money. That is what brings in the money. And that, because yes, you know, the online exclusives may be more expensive, but they don't sell that as nowhere near as many. Nowhere near as many. And that, and I think they do exaggerate their success. Like, for example, the Beat the Meat set from early in the year, literally less than a week after that set was released, Character put out a tweet saying, oh, hurry up and buy the set, the Beat the Meat set. We have sold 85% of our stock, or something like that. They did the same with the Third Doctor, I think, or it was one of the others. Yet the Third Doctor set is still on their website. The Beat the Meat set still on their website. Last year's bloody 15th Doctor set still on their website. Like I said, interestingly, Ruin Sascaro's set was still on their website until fairly recently, actually. I say fairly recently, a few months ago. Which, don't know. Don't know where that stock went. In terms of the Third Doctor set and the other set, like, also, they don't put things on sale anymore. That 15th Doctor set and that is still 40 quid. Yeah. You'd think they'd want to get rid of it and that by now. But no. It's weird. Like, the fact that the retail... I've seen the retail version of the 15th Doctor now going for more than the bloody Vortex edition. Like, in terms of a singular version of it and that. I've seen it going for more. Because the retail version, a lot of places have sold out of the retail version. Though, I think it's sold out on their website, but Forbidden Planet, if you go into their stores, every Forbidden Planet store I've been into, with this year, still has them. At least, one or two of them. So, yeah. And to be honest, out of the two, I do prefer the retail version, actually, but I do have, I did buy a singular Vortex edition of just the 15th Doctor on eBay. I mentioned this before, but I bought it. It was in box, and that for £17, and it came with all the accessories in the box for £17, which was actually very slightly cheaper than the retail version. And for that, I was like, yeah, because that was the only thing I was interested in, and even then, it was more to complete the line of Doctors than anything else. Like, to be honest, I forget I have it. To be honest. I completely forget that I have it. Because it's just not a figure I'm that interested in, to be frank. And if I hadn't have got it at the price I did, I wouldn't be losing sleep over it. Again, Canon Productions, I did mention this earlier in the stream, so how many revenge sets I got. But it was 5 I've got now. And I don't plan on getting any more unless they go on sale. Basically. Same with Remembrance. Got 5 of them, not getting any more unless they go on sale. Predo says the gag plant Asia Dark set reveal was in his back. Yeah, it wasn't in his back gut. It was in his conservatory. I think it was. It looked like a conservatory. The audio was awful. The audio was awful. It was really echoey as well. And also, I've mentioned this before, very sweaty Alduar. Like, that is not something you want to be watching. Especially just like, you can't believe that this is on an actual official YouTube channel of the manufacturer. This is what you want to be showing to advertise it. A low quality video, because I think that video, it was only in bloody 360p. And that one of them was, anyway. And it's a sweaty Alduar because it was hot at the time and that. Like, could you have not changed your shirt for the video? You can see visible sweat marks around his neck and around his armpits. Could you have not changed your shirt for that? But that video. And, maybe recorded it. I know it was during COVID, but maybe, I don't know, record it somewhere else. I don't have any padding in that room. I don't have the foam padding in my room. Unfortunately, because I don't have enough wall space for it. Unfortunately, really. Though, to be honest, my room's not too bad. Because although my room, a lot of people say, and it's like a bomb site. And yeah, I will say the one advantage of that is. It does mean it's never echoey in here. It actually dampens the sound quite well, actually, my room, and that. Since I've got all these things surrounding me, it actually dampens the sound quite a bit, actually. So, I may not have acoustic foam, but everything else in that around the room, and that sort of dampens the audio and that. So, there's that. Actually, this live stream, I've actually been sitting on my bed this time, the whole time on this one. And that I've got thankfully, I've got my Yeti Nano on my bed, just sitting there. Because thankfully, the cable it came with is unusually long. And I just did that on there. And that this time, so I don't know how the audio has sounded on this one. And that, to be honest, it sounds worse on stream. It does sound worse on stream because, YouTube's compressing it to hell. Because this microphone actually is capable of doing 24-bit audio. You won't be hearing that on this stream though. I mean, also my internet is part of that as well. I do have decent internet, to be fair, though. Like I have decent internet. I have BTEE's like highest tier, or should I say my dad does, because he pays the bill for it. I do pay on the family plan though. What was I going to say? I think that might be it. No, there's another. No, yeah, that's the last comment. Okay. Is it still going? Stream? I can't tell. Better. Yeah, it is, okay. Also, if I've said this in another video as well, I'll just say this as well as a bit of a disclaimer. If you are thinking or considering ripping your Doctor Who, or any, really, Blu-rays, start getting discs, particularly 4K discs, get the drives for them now, because they've all been discontinued in terms of the manufacturers and that. So yeah, if you want to get into it, start getting into it now while the disc drives are still available, because they're all discontinued. In terms of DVDs, won't worry about that, because they're still being manufactured by basically no-name brands. They work fine, those ones. But in terms of Blu-ray drives, I think, actually, yeah, no-name brands are making Blu-ray drives, but they're just regular ones. But if you want the ones that do 4K discs, well, doesn't mean a Chinese manufacturer won't take over from doing it, but, still. It's important to preserve your media, basically. Especially now, considering, look what's happened with Season 13. Imagine if that Season 13 Blu-ray was the only way to watch Season 13. Thankfully, it isn't. It isn't. And if you live in the US, import the UK DVDs. Import the UK DVDs for the best experience. And just either rip those or get a region-free player. But, yeah. I think I will wrap things up here. So, yeah, thank you for this live stream. I've been yapping on and that for over 3 hours, and that it is absolutely killed my voice. But yeah, I don't know when the next one will be. And that I don't know. This could be the last one of this year, or I might do another one and that soon. But yeah, thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in a video next week talking about the hack shit Dalek. There'll also be another Doctor Who Search for Memorabilia video before the end of this year. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye bye.